Chapter 232. What are you working on? Gaia entered the captain's cabin to see Michael leaning back on his chair fiddling with nuts and bolts. I just have to calibrate a few things. He was too focused on the project as he failed to notice Gaia looking at his world over his shoulder. She could see it kinda looked like the grappling hook they were using, but instead of hooks, she saw him place multiple syringes on a gauntlet. The gauntlet was smaller than the grappling hook. Oh, you're here. Michael finally noticed Gaia. Give me your hand. He didn't even wait for her as he just took her right hand. With her hand on his hand, Michael grabbed the gauntlet before gently placing it around Gaia's wrist. It's gonna sting a bit. What? Ouch. She felt a sharp pain in her wrist. It was like a couple of bees stinging at the same time. She looked at the gauntlet to see the syringes plunging themselves into her wrist before completely disappearing. Are you gone? Don't move, she was interjected by Michael. She rolled her eyes a bit and looked at him, and placed a transparent glass-like sticker on the back of her neck. She expected it to sting as earlier, but she only felt a slight tingling sensation in her brain. When I cut your hand, think of a healing potion. She frowned, but she ultimately nodded her head. With a gentle smile, he picked the dagger hanging from her slender waist. Carefully, Michael made a cut on her left forearm, as she thought of a healing potion as he instructed her to. Suddenly, she felt the syringes inside her right wrist move. Can you feel something? Yes, those needles are moving, as she said. A wide grin emerged on Michael's face. It's working. When did I become a guinea pig for you? A cute little guinea pig, Michael chuckled, pinching both of her soft cheeks. It's my new invention. I call this APD. Automatic Potion Dispenser. Michael rummaged through the junk on the table to grab another gauntlet. The name is pretty explanatory. I was able to squeeze in 8 syringes, fill the syringes with whatever potion we need, and whenever we need it, we just have to think about it. APD will inject the potion directly into our bloodstream. The best part is, it's made of junk metal, so no energy radiation. She could tell by his wide grin that he's so proud of his invention. After hearing what he said, it was obvious how useful this could be in a real battle where enemies won't wait until one takes out his potion and uses it. With this, it's almost guaranteed that we'll win the championship tournaments. Gaia's face lit up instantly. She knew in the first couple of rounds, using potions would be forbidden. However, if they used this gadget, the judges would have no idea as it would radiate 0 energy. It's cheating, but I like it, she revealed an evil grin. Making the device wasn't costly as it only required him to use some common materials. However, what cost him more was the sticker he placed on Gaia's neck. The sticker was an advanced metal that controls the pulses between the drive and the brain. Since his inventor trait was not high enough to build components that manipulate biochemical signals inside the body, he had to buy it from the system. A single sticker cost him 5,000 badass points, and it could only allow 2 kinds of potions to be loaded into the APD. Captain. Lord, suddenly, someone awkwardly knocked on the door. He could tell it's Gibson, who is standing outside by the voice. What does he want? Let's go see. Michael put on the APD beneath the sleeve before leaving the captain's cabin. When he opened the door, he saw Gibson, Shorty, and a few other pirates waiting for them. In their eyes, there was fear more than respect. The way he killed Bull was still freaking out the pirates. Lord Lucifer, we'll reach the Pirates' Cove in an hour, Gibson said. The sky was unusually clear. Nodding at Gibson, Michael walked to the edge of the ship to soak in all the sunlight. After numerous days of heavy downpour, it was a welcome sight to see the sun once again. I need you to stop drinking, Gibson, looking at the clear sky, Michael said. I can't have a drunk for a first mate, his words stunned Gibson. This will help you stop the habit. Michael tossed a slimy purple potion to Gibson. He knew how hard it was for addicts to stop their habit. If it was on Earth, recovering from addiction would take an immense amount of willpower and dedication, but in this world, all Michael has to do is make a potion that would help one get rid of the addiction. It's either drink this, get rid of your addiction, and get fucking rich like a king, or end up as a snack for the sharks below. Michael let his words sink into Gibson's mind for a few seconds before offering something that he won't be able to refuse. Plus, it'll get you a new leg, not some wooden artificial stuff, a real leg. Although Michael had no way of making limbs grow again at the current time, he was positive he would get the ability through the system, or find a 6-star healer subordinate to do so in the future. Also, he didn't give a shit about others' drinking habits. For all he cared, they could do whatever they want with their gold coins in their free time. But he wanted Gibson to stay clean. Lord Lucifer. You can do that? Gotcha, Michael snickered inside after seeing the excitement in Gibson's voice. Yes, get clean and I'll get you a new leg. The other pirates, including Shorty, also looked excited for their fellow pirate Gibson. Loyalty towards us is the only price you have to pay us. Gaia leaned on the ship's mainsail beam and said. That's the Pirate Cove. Captain Gibson pointed out the big island surrounded by countless ocean boulders. The boulders acted as a natural defense against the ships as they prevented the ships from reaching the island. The only way to get into the island without swimming seemed to be the large docks at the far side of the island. Surrounding waters were filled with small fishing boats and nets. In the distance, a couple of pirate sail ships with skulls and swords for flags docking at the docks. It's good to be back here after all these years, Gibson exclaimed with a burst of joy. Gaia noticed all the pirates were bouncing in joy. Listen up, when you get into the island, do not say anything about what happened to Bull or anything related to me. I'm just a pirate like you and she's my girlfriend. If you blabber anything to anyone, I'll personally end you. For a few moments, the pirates looked dumbstruck, but soon, they all just nodded in agreement. If anyone asked about the curse or Captain Bull lost his life lifting the curse, that's the story. Captain, it'd be hard for them to believe that you two are pirates, Gibson whispered to Michael standing beside him near the rudder. Just say we came from the northern continents, since it was not possible to get dirty like the rest of the pirates. Michael asked Gibson to tell the truth to cover up his real identity. Besides, he would soon reveal himself as the captain of the Silent Reaper to the world. He just wanted to gather more information about this part of the world before making any important steps. Gibson, I also want you to buy everything on the list. Michael handed over a piece of paper to Gibson with a pouch of gold coins. Gibson opened up the paper to see a list of familiar names. They were all items, metals, and things related to the ship itself. The closer his ship got to the docks, the clearer he could see the island. The Pirate Cove was a tropical island with various wooded buildings and occasional watchtowers. Trees such as palm and coconut added a certain charm to the island. What made the island more beautiful was the colorful coral reefs. They were like nature's carpet welcoming them into the island. The TV shows and movies didn't do justice to the beauty of Pirate Cove in Michael's view. This is gonna be fun. The Silent Reaper slowly made its way to the docks under the shocked gazes of little children who were standing on the shore. Its black eerie look gave chills to many citizens of the Pirate Cove. Just by looking at all those fresh fishes caught by the net, Gaia's stomach started to scream for some grilled fish. I assume you're all headed to a tavern. Of course, Captain. Sorry. How do we call you now? Shorty seemed like he cannot wait to step on the shore and get drunk to his throat. For now, I'm David and she's Eli. See you at the Burning Candle, David. Eli. Shorty don't wait for the ship to get docked but jumped into the water outside. The other pirates were slightly afraid of stepping onto the shore, yet Shorty decided to rush towards the shore with no worries. He's excited. Gaia chuckled seeing the little guy swimming like a shark chasing him behind. Get yourself a bath and meet me at the tavern, Michael said to Gibson before leaving him behind. Gibson took a sniff of his shirt and realized the urgency of a bath and a set of new clothes. Chapter 233. After leaving the Silent Reaper at the docks, Michael and Gaia wandered through the sandy roads of Pirate Cove. Everywhere Michael turned, he could see tropical trees, buildings made of nothing but wood, broken fishing boards that were being used to shelter drunken pirates, and little children playing pirates. The island was pretty lively. I am Captain Redbeard. Bow before me. If you're Captain Redbeard, I'd be Captain Tanasha. Did you see the scary ship at the docks? It's the Silent Reaper. My grandpa told me stories about it. Who's the captain? While Michael and Gaia were roaming the island, he heard children and grown men gossip about the Silent Reaper. Because the Silent Reaper appeared at the Pirate Cove nearly 3 decades ago, many stories about the ship turned into rumors. Only a handful of elderly citizens in their 70s had more information about the ship, its crew, and the curse. As he was walking, his courage was raised by the light, which streams through the palm and coconut trees lighting up the beauties of the island, and stopped to smell the flowers and examine things, which he never thought existed. Cutlasses forged using the finest steel. Rum barrels wholesale. High-quality tobacco and sugar. Under the shade of tropical trees, merchants were shouting loudly to attract the attention of newly arrived pirates. Not a single food stall, Gaia sighed after searching the line of merchant stalls for something to eat. There's no clothing store either, Michael said. He wanted to change his clothes to blend with the natives, yet wherever he looked, he couldn't find a clothing store or a place where he could buy some piratey clothes. Let's go to the tavern and beat. Gaia was sweating as she was inside an oven. The lack of arch energy in the atmosphere took a toll on her body. To find the tavern, Michael didn't have to ask for direction. He only needed to follow the grown men. Eventually, after following some men, they reached their destination. The Burning Candle. Michael read the signboard hanging above an old wooden door. From the outside, it looked lively, folksy, and enchanting. Soft wood and well-crafted wooden beams make up most of the building's outer structure. It was near impossible to see through the dirty windows, but the sounds of dancing and singing from within could be felt outside. As they entered the tavern through the well-crafted wooden door, they were welcomed by amazing, but unknown scents and laughing voices. The bartender, who was a middle-aged woman, was a little preoccupied with customers, but still managed to welcome them with a wink. It was as engaging inside as it was on the outside. Several walls supported the upper floor and the large candles attached to them. The walls were loaded with hundreds of small ship parts, all signed and most likely donated by fellow pirates. The tavern itself was packed. Pirates seemed to be the primary clientele here, which often led to exciting evenings. Several long tables were occupied by separate groups of pirates, all enjoying themselves, but they kept to themselves. Among the tables were Michael's crew, who seemed to be losing their consciousness due to the rum they were chugging non-stop. Some were even dancing on the table, while others were cheering from them by clapping and yelling. The other, smaller tables were also occupied by people who were playing games and, judging by their laughter, were either telling jokes or great, perhaps embarrassing tales. Even most of the stools at the bar were occupied, though nobody seemed to mind more company. Michael did hear tales about this tavern back on the ship. Supposedly it was famous for something, but he couldn't remember what for. Though judging by the music and how many people were dancing, it must be the live band who just started playing. There are some empty chairs. Gaia pointed at the few empty chairs at the far end of the room as they walked towards the table to prepare for what would undoubtedly be a great morning. In the heat of the moment, most of Michael's crew completely failed to notice him until Shorty whispered something into their ears. They all gave a quick glance at Michael before resuming what they were doing. Few of the waitresses were still busy serving the other pirates. Michael and Gaia were not in a rush, so they just waited for one of the waitresses to come to them. How long are we gonna stay on this island? I have to make a few upgrades to our ship. Few days tops, I think. She's not a whore, Holman. Let her go. The bartender's shout drew Michael's attention towards a waitress near Shorty's table. The waitress was trying to get herself free from the hold of a Scarface pirate. She's a big girl. She can decide what she's gonna be tonight. The Scarface pirate took out a pouch, pouring out gold coins on the table. By the look on the other pirates' faces, Michael could see that they were fortunate enough to plunder a rich merchant ship or two. Besides, among all the people in the tavern, these guys had shinier cutlasses and wore cleaner clothes. Look for someone else, Holman. The waitress freed herself from his grab by swatting his hand away. The golden hair waitress quickly rushed back into the kitchen, leaving Holman and his crew behind. This place hasn't changed a bit. Suddenly Michael heard a familiar voice as he turned to see Gibson walking towards them. Compared to the man he met before, Gibson looked like a new person. It's really a wonder how a bath and a new set of clothes could do to a man. Gibson scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Michael gestured at him to pull up the empty chair to their table. "Oh, get us something." Gaia left the table, leaving Gibson and Michael behind. Gibson would have offered to get something, but she didn't give him any time to offer his aid. "Tell me about yourself, Gibson." Michael noticed his hands were shaking as well as his eyes were checking the rum served by the waitresses. It was obvious he wanted a drink. Michael took his attention from the booze with the question. "Well, I was serving under Her Majesty before losing my leg and becoming a pirate." "Her Majesty?" "The Empress of our continent. The Aur continent was the largest in this world. It was larger than Elon and Azer continent combined. He knew little to nothing about Aur continent, except the fact that he had unfinished business to take care of in Aur. On a scale of 1 to 10, how powerful is Aur continent? 20 or even 30 cap. David Gibson almost said his real name, but quickly corrected himself. The scholars say there are multiple magical ley lines under the land of Aur. Hence, everyone and every kingdom are fucking powerful. Also, those snobby bastards are ridiculously rich. Seems like my kind of place. Well, go there in the future. Gibson was about to protest this idea of them visiting Aur continent when his eyes widened in shock. He noticed Holman checking out Eli, the girl who killed a group of pirates like they were nothing. It took Michael a second to notice the change in Gibson's eyes. Gibson slowly turned his gaze away from Holman to Lucifer, but unlike he expected, the young man remained calm. Although the mask Gaia wore significantly reduced her beauty, her perfect hourglass structure, and her grace made her stand out in this crowd, especially when the tavern was lacking in ladies. Michael knew he can neither stop every man who checks out Gaia, nor cleanse the world of perverts. Therefore, he remained calm, as it wasn't worth his time to start a fight just because he's staring at Gaia from her top to bottom. Right at the moment, Michael noticed another set of eyes staring at Holman and Gaia. The figure was wearing a hood to cover his face. He wore what a typical pirate would wear, except his boots looked military. Now that the figure attracted Michael's attention, he noticed the figure was sitting in front of glass bottles on the table before the bartender. For a normal person, it would raise no flags, but for a highly trained assassin like Michael, it said many things about the figure. Gibson heaved a sigh of relief when Gaia left the bar counter without giving Holman a chance to mess with her. The tavern was neutral ground, and a place under the protection of the 3 great pirate captains. Fighting inside the tavern was forbidden. If anyone tried to start a fight, they would become the target of 3 captains. The last thing Gibson wanted was Lucifer to kill the 3 pirate captains and mess with the equilibrium of the pirate world. The figure quickly turned his gaze away from Holman as he pretended to take a sip from his mug, but Michael saw him using the glass bottles in front of him to monitor everything around him. Using reflective surfaces to monitor the area was a classic trick used by spies and assassins. Michael couldn't help but wonder, what is a spy or an assassin doing in a tavern like this? Gaia placed a tray with 3 mugs filled with rum and 3 grilled salmon on the table before sitting beside Michael. It'd be weird if I ask for water to drink in this place, so just pretend to drink the rum, she said as her eyes looked at Gibson. Pretend? Got it, Eli, Gibson mumbled as he reached out to touch the grilled salmon because he thought one of the 3 plates of fish was his. Plop. When his hand were about to touch the fish, he was swatted away by Gaia. Don't even think about it. Gibson saw Lucifer chuckle while Eli began to dig into the grilled fishes. Fuck, it's bad yet I can't stop eating, she said, cleaning the fish to its bones. While Gaia was stuffing her belly, Michael was calmly looking around the tavern, listening to all the conversations going around him. Who the fuck gave you this? Yet again, Michael heard Holman's voice. This time, Holman's shout silenced the entire tavern. Every pair of eyes were on Holman as he trembled in anger. It was him. The waitress pointed her hand at none other than Michael himself. Michael was taken aback by surprise by the waitress' words. Everyone in the tavern, including Gibson and Gaia, stared at Michael. You. Holman gave a kick to the table in front of him as the table violently clashed with the wall. The sounds of plates and mugs scattering on the floor could be heard throughout the tavern. Chapter 234. Michael was pretty confused for a moment, except when he saw the hooded figure staring at both him and Holman. He began to doubt that this might be the hooded figure's handiwork. He's good, Michael couldn't help praising the hooded figure. Although he kept his eyes on him, the hooded figure still somehow managed to orchestrate something to make Holman pissed off at him. What was on the piece of paper Holman's holding was still a mystery for him. Yet it was enough to make Holman and his crew very angry. Ah shit, here we go again. Gaia rolled her eyes. She was too focused on filling her belly that she failed to notice the hooded figure. Cool your pants, Holman. Fighting is not allowed here, the bartender lady yet again shouted at Holman. It somewhat slowed down Holman's walking pace towards Michael, but it didn't evaporate the anger in his eyes, not at all. Meanwhile, everyone in the tavern seemed extremely excited to see some action. including Michael's own crew. Unlike the rest of the pirates, his crew knew the result of the upcoming fight, yet they wanted to see some fancy magic again. Oh, this is gonna be good. Who is that guy? I've never seen him before. Look at the way he dressed, he might be someone from the northern continent. Who cares where he's from, let's enjoy the show. Go get him, Holman. Yeah, fuck him up. The pirates were drunk. They wanted to have some fun besides drinking, and what was happening right in front of them began to quench their thirst for blood and chaos. You and me outside. The fish is tasteless anyways. She wiped her mouth with a white cloth as Gibson just stared at her stunned because there was nothing but fish skeletons on her plate. She almost licked the plates clean, yet she seemed so disappointed. Her appetite really did shock Gibson. David, let me go talk to him, Gibson whispered to Michael, who was still leaning back on his chair as nothing happened. I like where's this going? Michael took a glance at the hooded figure sitting at the bar counter before standing up. He brushed off some of the dust on his dress as Gaia and Gibson stood up to follow him behind. In a couple of minutes, the whole lively tavern became empty as everyone went outside to see the fight. Even the bartender quickly cleaned the glasses to get outside. Is it too early to show us who we really are? Gaia asked while walking behind him towards the door. Way too early. When Michael opened the door, he was welcomed by a large crowd consisting of children, pirates, ladies, and surprisingly a couple of dogs. The crowd was standing in a circle. In the center of the circle was Holman. Michael immediately got all the attention when he stepped outside. I don't know who set you up, but I'm gonna find out. Holman removed his shirt, showing his scar-filled torso. He was flexing his muscles, kicking the sandy mud on the ground and snarling his teeth at Michael. All of his gestures really made Michael wonder what the hell was on that piece of paper that made Holman so mad. Michael stared at the crowd, searching for the hooded figure. It took Michael a couple of seconds to find the figure standing on a balcony of the building next to the tavern. The balcony had drying clothes that helped the hooded figure hide behind. I don't know what's on the paper, but I had nothing to do with it, Michael calmly said while the crowd opened up to make way for him to the center of the circle. Let me be the judge of it. Holman, however, did not listen to Michael. He seemed like he wouldn't back off without a fight. Fight! 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 The pirates lost their patience as they began to chant the word fight over and over again. Right at the moment, Michael was standing just a couple of meters away from Holman. Gibson and Gaia were standing right behind Michael, while Michael's crew stared at the scene with a rum bottle in their hands. Who wants to bet? Shorty shouted at the people, taking out a pouch of coins. Place your bets and win 5 times the coins. Shorty used the pirate's drunk status to his advantage. Hell yeah, 50 coins on Holman, 100 on Holman. 5 times, you bastards. Take out your coins and be a man. Shorty riled up the pirates to bet more. Shorty picked up one of his fellow pirates' hat to collect all the coins along with the bidder's name. He was surprisingly quick to get coins from almost everyone except a couple of dogs in the crowd. After collecting the coins, Gaia saw Shorty tug her sleeves. Can you tell Cap to take a few punches before finishing him off? You are one little fucker, Gaia chuckled, seeing Shorty's courage and stupidity. He really surprised her by asking her to ask Michael to take a few punches, just because Shorty wants more people to bet on Holman. He may be a little crazy, but Gaia liked his quick wits and courage. Well, split the coins 50-50, really? I mean, yeah, sure. Shorty wanted to keep everything to himself, but what Gaia said freaked him out, yet he had to agree with her. He was not that stupid to argue with a woman who could kill him using her pinky. Take a few hits. Shorty saw Gaia place her hand on her ear, whispering something. Shorty then noticed Lucifer turn his head for a second and nod. Alright, are we doing this or what? Michael asked Holman, who was still flexing his muscles to attract the ladies in the crowd. We're doing it. Holman finally stopped flexing his muscles after hearing Michael's words. After reaching 89% mastery over the fighting technique Gaia taught him, he could predict almost every possible move Holman would make in the next few seconds. If Michael wanted to, he could knock out or kill Holman in just a kick to his neck. However, he decided to take a few punches from Holman, not because Gaia asked him to, but because he wanted to see how strong are these people compared to those in the northern continent. Since they were unable to use arch energy or any kind of energy, he wanted to see if they were blessed with some other powers such as strong bodies. Holman rushed at Michael, slightly covering his face like a boxer. He was obviously expecting Michael to throw a punch, but unlike he expected, Michael just stood there. Because he never put up his guard, Holman quickly threw a punch at Michael's face. Thop. The very moment Holman's fist connected with Michael's face, it produced a thopping sound as the force of the punch pushed back Michael several steps backward. At the same time, the APD kicked in, injecting the healing potion into his bloodstream. Michael was stunned by the punch. It felt like someone hitting him with a sledgehammer, using all their might. The force behind the punch gave Michael a piece of valuable information. The Southerners definitely blessed with more raw power compared to the people of northern continents. This meant that although they lacked the ability to cultivate, they were not as vulnerable as Michael thought. In other words, Holman had the strength of a body refining stage cultivator. The pain he felt quickly disappeared thanks to the APD, yet a small trickle of blood flowed out of the corner of his lips. Michael spat the blood as a small smile emerged on his face. Who taught you to throw a punch? Your grandma? Oh, the crowd laughed, which made Holman more furious as he rushed at Michael again to close the gap between them. Thop. Thop. This time Holman punched Michael in the jaw with his right hand, and landed a blow to his left rib cage using his left hand. Yet again, Michael felt an excruciating pain for a second before the APD injected the healing potion into his bloodstream. I'll bet 200 more on Holman. 400 on Holman. The return has gone up, 10 times the coins, people, 10 times. Shorty kept shouting while the pirates stupidly fell for his trick. Soon, they started to pour out the gold coins excitedly. Meanwhile, Michael continued to take a few punches to fully comprehend the extent of Holman's raw strength and stamina. Why aren't you going down? Holman couldn't believe he was smiling even after receiving his punches. He definitely felt the youngster's rib broken by one of his punches, yet he showed no expression of pain on his face. I'll now show you how to throw a punch. Michael cracked his knuckles. However, before taking a step towards Holman, he turned back to throw a glance at the hooded figure standing on the balcony. Holman rushed at him again to finish him off while he was staring at somewhere else. As Holman threw the punch aiming straight at Michael's nose, he swiftly evaded the fist. The next second, Michael uppercut him in the jaw using just enough force to knock him out. Considering he gauged Holman's strength, he put enough arch energy to give him the power to knock him down. Thop. Ooh, what the? The moment Michael's fist met Holman's jaw, he was immediately knocked out by the force. His body hit the sand, producing a thud sound as the onlookers were made speechless. Get up. Hey. Gibson and the crew were yet again stunned by his display of strength. They kinda expected him to use some magic spells, but they never imagined him to knock Holman out in a single punch. That's how you throw a punch. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 300 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 500 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 300 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 600 badass points. Sweet Michael grinned. When he killed Captain Lars and his men, he never received experience points. Considering they were not cultivators, it didn't surprise him. He was only kinda disappointed. However, now after receiving almost 3,000 badass points just by knocking out Holman, he began to feel the excitement rising inside him. Chapter 235. Is he dead? It can't be. Hey, get your ass up. Fuck me, I just placed 500 coins on him. My coins. Stand up. The pirates began to splash whatever booze was in their hand on Holman's unconscious body, except no matter what they threw at Holman, he wasn't waking up. Get him. Suddenly, one of Holman's friends yelled orders at the others, pointing his finger at Michael. There were a total of 7 men in their early 30s who rushed at Michael to avenge Holman. See. Keep your mouth shut. Just when Gibson was about to call him captain and ruin their disguises, Gaia elbowed Gibson in the ribcage to shut him up. She then quickly gave a glance at the rest of the crew to stay still. 6 of Holman's friends surrounded Michael, while one knelt down to check on Holman. 7 versus 1. The odds are against you boys, said Michael calmly. Pfft, you stupid. We're gonna mop the floor with you. Let's teach him a lesson. Holman's friends taunted Michael. Considering they were pretty drunk, they seemed to forget how he knocked out their friend Holman with a single punch. Just looking at their footwork and hand movements told him that they don't know any special fighting technique. Let's do this. Michael just raised his finger to call them up as two of Holman's friends rushed at him from the front, while one moved from Michael's behind. The distance between the two coming from the front was approximately 4 meters, while the one trying to attack him from behind was only 2 meters. Therefore, he had to deal with the closest one before dealing with the others. When a fist came closer to him, he just stepped forward, and then sideways as the guy lost his balance due to missing the punch. Before he could stumble down, Michael kicked his right knee, instantly breaking it. "Ah!" he screamed in agony, dropping to the ground. However, he did not give the guy any time as Michael grabbed his neck before sending a knee to the side of the guy's face, knocking him out instantly. Plus, one could hear a jaw-breaking sound when Michael's knee hit his face. After dropping one guy to the ground, the two who were rushing at him from the front halted their steps in shock, because everything happened so fast as many weren't even completely sure of what just happened. Although the two halted their steps, Michael did not stop as he dashed at him as fast as he could without using any arch energy. Even without lightning dash, the training he underwent made him extremely agile, strong and fast. The booze slowed down the two guys' reflection speed. Wasting no time, he elbowed one guy on the side of his face. The jaw was separated by the elbow as he went down without a scream. The very next moment, he twisted his body, swinging his right leg. The side whip kick instantly knocked the other guy, producing a short thud sound. At this time, the rest of Holman's friends began to rush at Michael from his front, left and right. With a swift kick to the gut, he sent the guy coming from the front stumbling back. Then he twisted his body, sending a fist into the guy's face. Michael felt his knuckles breaking the guy's nose. The blood splashed across the ice as well as stained Michael's fist. The last guy suddenly started to walk backward in fear, because he was the last one standing. The one who was checking on Holman already dragged Holman out of the way from the fight. Even after being shaken violently, Holman still did not recover his consciousness. "I told you the odds are against you," Michael said, kicking the guy who he sent stumbling backward with a kick to the gut before, finally knocking him out. "Thop. You come here." The last guy screamed at the one who was pretending to check on Holman. One could see that the guy was freaked out seeing his friends getting knocked out one by one. This time, Michael did not rush at him but just picked up a half-drunk rum bottle from the ground. The crowd was stunned at the scene as they now stared at Michael like he was some kind of freak. They watched Michael walk towards the last guy with the bottle in his hand. "You." The guy mumbled as he tried to unsheath his cutlass. Michael grabbed the guy's hand, stopping him from reaching his sword. "Next time, run away, crack." Michael smashed the bottle in the guy's head with enough force to knock him down. Out of the 7 men, 6 were knocked out. He turned his gaze towards the last man who was on the ground beside Holman. "Tell your friends, this ends right here. If they try anything silly, that'd be the last thing they do." After warning the guy, he just turned around, walking towards Gaia and Gibson. "Put this in your ear." He placed an earpiece in Gibson's hand, whispering to put it into his ear. Among the chaos, no one noticed the little exchange between Michael and Gibson. The onlookers were too focused on losing their money to Shorty. After Michael left the area, Shorty did not linger around as he knew the pirates would rob him blind if he stayed. Shorty gathered his crew before running behind Gibson. After the fight, Michael and Gaia walked into a dark alley near the tavern. Michael had to lose the crowd as some people who lost coins because of him might try to start another fight. As much as he could, he wanted to stay off the grid without showing any of his powers before he could get a complete idea about this part of the world. Getting into regular fights would ruin his plan. "Where are we going?" Gaia asked. The place was dark, nothing but trash to accompany them in the alley. The tall buildings on either side prevented much of the sunlight from lighting the alley, hence the darkness. "You're gonna come down or keep following us?" Michael stopped walking and shouted, looking at the top of the wooden building beside him. Gaia was confused, but she soon saw movements up on the roof. Just a few seconds after Michael's shout, the hooded figure leaped down from the top of the building and landed in front of them comfortably. "Who the fuck is he?" Gaia asked Michael while he just stood there calmly, waiting for the hooded figure to start speaking. "You made me," the hooded figure spoke with a thick accent. He was standing at least 6 feet 5 inches with enough muscles to compete in a bodybuilding competition back on Earth. Yet he seemed so agile. I noticed. It'd be nice if you tell me why did you choose me and what do you want? Call it a gut feeling. I'm putting up together a team, and after what I saw, I'd say my gut feeling was right. It was you who set up that Holman guy, wasn't it? Gaia connected the dots as the hooded figure's silence confirmed her theory. Team for doing what? A simple retrieval. There are risks, but you'll 3 million in gold before and 3 million after the job's done. 6 million for a simple retrieving. I'm interested. He didn't believe someone would pay 6 million for a simple retrieving job. However, he wanted to learn more about this part of the world and its people. Doing this job would not only make him rich but also help him gather more information. Besides, he wanted to know who's willing to pour out that many coins and for what. Even if the team just consisted of 4 people and the same payday for everyone, it would cost the one running the operation 24 million. If someone was willing to pay 24 million, he knew what he wanted to be retrieved must be worth it. Meet me at the docks in 8 hours. We'll be headed to Giselle. The moment the hooded figure mentioned the name Giselle, Michael's brows arched up. Kingdom Giselle was his destination. It was where the source of Nightcrawler's magic radiation hiding artifact. He paid the system a hefty sum to get the location. He even left the demon soul stone back at the abyssal to get his hands on the artifact before anyone else could. Now it seemed like someone's already putting together a team to get the artifact. Before Michael could ask any further questions, the hooded figure used a grappling hook similar to Michael's to reach the rooftop and disappear. The design of the grappling hook was different from Michael's Mark III, yet he was surprised by the device. According to Arya, the Southerners always compensated for the lack of arch energy with technology and science. Now that he saw the hooded figure use such a device, he began to form an idea about this part of the world. Giselle? It's where we're going. Somehow I can't believe it's just a coincidence. Either way, we'll see this through, said Michael. Where do you want me? Get to Gibson and follow us discreetly. I'm doing this alone. He gave a gentle pat on her shoulder before leaving the alley. Since they didn't want the hooded figure to know the Silent Reaper belonged to them, they had to be cautious. They had to keep their cards close to their chest without revealing them, because they could be used to their advantage if the hooded figure tried to double-cross them after the job was done. Chapter 236. Dusk came sooner than expected. The last of the sun's rays caught it behind soft gray clouds. The sandy streets of Pirate Cove took on the look of an old photograph, every familiar thing a shade of gray. Slowly the view faded to blackness and the night began, slowly letting the stars in the sky shine. The sound of waves hitting the sea boulders as well as the birds chirping radiated a soothing effect to everyone on the island. Right at the moment, Michael stood on the docks looking at the sun disappearing into the horizon. He felt peaceful as the time flew by without his notice. Soon, when the light of the sun completely vanished, a merchant ship sailed towards him to dock at the docks. Hop in. After the ship stopped, Michael saw a 7-foot gigantic man throw him a plank to get on board the ship. The moment he stepped on the upper deck, he noticed a handful of crew running around the deck. Welcome on board, new guy. Michael had to look up to see his face. He had ruffled short-length hair, well-defined muscles like a bodybuilder. He only wore brown breeches as well as black boots, nothing to cover his upper body. On his behind, Michael noticed a huge warhammer hanging on. Coupled with his dark skin, the man could give a heart attack to any soft-hearted person. Regardless of his terrifying body, he welcomed Michael with a genuine smile on his face. He also reached out for a handshake. "How are you doing?" Michael shook his hand with a smile. "Hey gang, move your asses over here. The new guy's here," he shouted with his thick voice. Soon after his shout, a group of people walked out from the captain's cabin. He saw a young short golden-haired girl with a crossbow, a brown-haired youngster with a rapier hanging on his waist, a short person with a hood covering his face, and finally, a youngster with big round glasses on his face. Michael looked around to see the hooded figure he met in the alley, but he wasn't with the group in front of him. "So what's your specialty?" the golden-haired girl asked. She was an average-looking girl, fair skin, square jaws, hazel eyes. The only unique thing about her was the tattoo on her neck, a tattoo of a raven. Unlike the man who welcomed Michael, There was no friendly smile on her face. She seemed as she was pissed off at someone. Depends, he just shrugged. That ray of sunshine is Marcella. The big man began to introduce them one by one to Michael. He calls himself Brownie. He pointed at the brown-haired youngster. I think it's something to do with his brown hair, the big man whispered with a chuckle. After introducing Marcella and Brownie, the big man pointed his finger at the short hooded figure. That's Jesse, the big man said as Jesse waved his hand. You might want to hide your things from him, the big man whispered again before pointing his finger at the glasses-wearing youngster. I'm Jonah, welcome. Welcome aboard. Before the big guy could, the youngster introduced himself with an awkward smile. You can call me Logan. Logan again reached out for a handshake. David, once again, Michael shook his hand. You got quite a grip, David. Logan gave a friendly pat on Michael's back. I don't see any peace on you, David. Where we are going, you'll need something, Marcella said. Let's bring him up to speed. Michael turned his head towards the captain's cabin to see a bald, muscular man with various tattoos covering his neck walking towards him. Judging by the height and the device strapped around his wrist, he knew this guy is the hooded figure he met earlier. The man had tan skin, a round face with small lively eyes. He was not as tall as Logan but not short as Jesse either. Follow me. That's Ross. In case you didn't know, they all followed Ross behind into the captain's cabin. When they opened the door, Michael saw another man wearing full leather armor standing behind a round oak table. The armor looked sturdy. The man was an inch taller than Ross, neatly combed his short black hair to the side. On his back, Michael saw a shiny silver round shield as well as a long sword hanging on his waist. After everyone entered the room, Ross closed the room while the man tossed a pay cube towards Michael. Your advance is in the pay cube. You can cash in any of the banks in Southern Continent. Alright, I assume you're all acquainted, so let's start the briefing. What happened to Rowan? And we don't know anything about this guy. Marcella's words slightly annoyed Michael, but he let Ross handle her. Rowan went to the island with the recon team, and the less we know about each other is best. Quit whining, Marcella. David seems capable to me. Logan still had a smile plastered across his face, yet he sounded like he doesn't like Marcella very much. In Michael's eyes, the two of them were polar opposites. Logan seemed like a nice friendly guy while Marcella seemed like a typical cold-hearted bitch. David, you know where we are going exactly? The man in armor asked Michael. Ross said we're going to the Giselle Kingdom for a simple retrieval job. But I know it might not be that simple, considering the payday. So bring me up to speed. The man nodded and continued, placing his finger on the map on the table. Michael saw he was pointing at a small island near the Kingdom Giselle. Harfordile, now known as the Zombie Island. Michael was genuinely surprised by the man's words. You call them Netherals, Ross said. It was obvious Ross gathered information about him at the tavern, through one of his crew members. However, by the look of Ross, it was evident that the crew members kept their mouths shut about Michael using arch energy inside the void line. You dealt with them before? The man asked. Yeah, killed a few. You're okay with venturing into an island filled with fucking undead, because you killed a few, Jesse? The hooded figure opened his mouth for the first time. He had the voice of a teenager. If Michael had to guess, he would say Jesse is 18 or 19 years old. As some of you may know, the annual hunting of the undead starts 2 days from now. We'll enter the island as hunters, reach the center of the island, get what we need, and get the hell out of there. This is the short version of the plan. The longer version is the island is divided into 3 circles. The outer circle has fewer undead creatures, hence less dangerous. The deeper we move forward towards the center of the island, the dangerous it'd be. After we get through the outer circle, we'll meet the recon team here. Ross pointed at the river on the map. The recon team went there with professional builders. If everything went according to the plan, there'd be a ship waiting for us. How did the recon team enter the island before the hunting season begins? Logan asked, looking at Ross and the man in armor. Let's just say my employer called in some favors, said the man in the armor. Moving on. After we get on the boat, we'll travel straight to the center of the island where we believe the undead are building a temple. Except for Marcella and the man in armor, everyone else was stunned by Ross' words. Back in Abyssal, Delar was using rituals and a mysterious book to control the Netherals to do his bidding. If what Ross said was correct, Someone on this island or something was controlling the netherals just like Dalar. Undead building a temple? Are you kidding us right now? The last time I heard, undead can't think for themselves. Logan threw his hands in the air, refusing to believe Ross' words. The normal undead can't, but the alphas can, Marcella said as Ross and the man in armor nodded. Alphas? Michael asked as he wanted to know more about the alphas that Marcella was talking about. New breed of undead. We believe something in the island is mutating the undead. The alphas are the completely mutated ones. Ross was intercepted by the man in armor when he was going to finish his sentence. As for what's mutating the undead, it's no one's concern. The others might have no idea, but Michael knew what might be mutating them. The same artifact he's looking for. What about the terrain of the island? Logan asked. The island is a rainforest. Hope you've all brought umbrellas, people, Ross joked. Everyone looked gloomy except Michael. The rainforest would give him the advantage to double-cross them and disappear after getting his hands on the artifact. Plus, he firmly believed that most of these people would die before reaching the artifact because he already injected himself with the vaccine for Netheral Bite. He had to buy a few herbs from the system, but with the help of his alchemy knowledge and ample amount of Netheral samples, he was able to make the vaccine. Rain and forest, the two things I hate the most. Logan rubbed his temples. If you need any last-minute supply or a weapon, go get them now. Well, leave the docks in 1 hour. Michael was the first to leave the room after Ross' words. He had to retrieve the Doombringer and the Mark III grappling hook from his space ring without anyone noticing. Chapter 237. I thought you were a sword kinda guy. When Michael stepped onto the upper deck, Logan came to him with a surprised look on his face. His Doombringer was majestically hanging on his behind, gently reflecting the moonlight. It looks heavy. Logan's eyes were sparkling looking at the Doombringer. Michael could tell Logan's craving to hold the warhammer in his hand. It is. Michael took the Doombringer from his behind and twisted the handle stylishly. Because he was not using any arch energy, the weight of the Doombringer made his biceps flex out. After his intense training, his body became toned and each muscle in his body had a definite definition. Can I hold it? Logan looked like a big 7-foot baby staring at a candy. Sure, Michael chuckled as he handed over the Doombringer to Logan. The big Logan was excitedly smiling, but when he grabbed the handle of Doombringer, his smile disappeared. Dang it, it's so freaking heavy. Michael was slightly surprised to see a muscle mountain like Logan struggling to lift the Doombringer without using all of his strength. The weight training plus the serpent-style fighting technique changed his body from the molecular level, making him stronger and faster than most people. This was the reason why Gaia was able to break wood logs like they were eggshells. She was damn strong. Now that he had undergone the training with the help of the system, he was stronger and faster than Gaia herself, and on a different level compared to anyone in the southern continent. You're stronger than you look, David, Logan said, putting down the Doombringer on the floor by its head. Work on your weightlifting, big boy. Michael gave a friendly pat on Logan's shoulder with a chuckle. All right, guys, we're leaving. Ross stood at the helm, preparing to leave the docks. After hearing his shout, the ship's crew began to unravel the sails. The ship slowly started to move as they all felt a sudden jerk. Michael walked over to the edge of the ship, leaned on the edge, looking at the starry night above the peaceful ocean. So what do you think about the team, David? Logan leaned on the wooden railing beside him. No clue. What's your take? You know what? I'm glad you're here because you're the most normal person on the ship. Michael looked over his shoulder back at the team and couldn't help but agree with Logan. Brownie was muttering something under his breath while Jesse, the hooded figure checking the crates, lined up near the mainsail pole. On the far end of the ship, Jonah appeared to be occupied with the starry night. Although Marcella seemed normal, Michael knew she would be the last person to talk to in the entire ship. Logan was dead wrong about him being normal, but compared to the others, he was the friendliest and normal-looking person on the ship. Ross is kind of the team captain here. Marcella is our tracker. Jesse is the thief. I don't know how a thief could help with our mission. I heard Brownie is some kind of undead expert in Jonah. I have no idea why we are bringing him along with us. Michael took a mental note in his mind. If he wanted to double-cross them at the end, he needed to know everything there is to know about them. How do you know all this? He asked Logan. Because I was the first to get recruited by Ross, Michael nodded. And let me guess, Your specialty is killing undead. Undead, overgrown beasts, bandits, etc., etc. The mercenary job requires killing pretty much all the above. Being mercenary wasn't very much different from being an adventurer. They both would get the job done for an amount. Since Logan didn't seem like a genius guy, he made the right choice by becoming a mercenary in Michael's mind. Also, Logan seemed like a nice, easygoing guy. I guess you're also here to keep the undead from killing the team. Yeah, you can say that. Why did you come to the southern continent anyways? I thought you cultivators hated crossing the void line. You know? Michael was slightly surprised, but he could tell Ross might have told Logan about where he came from. Come on, the way you dress is kinda dead giveaway. Besides, H and Ross told us about you. H? You mean the guy in armor? Yeah, no one here knows his real name, he just goes by H. I don't know what his deal is, but he rubbed me the wrong way. Whatever, tell me, David, do you miss being a cultivator? What could have possibly made you come here? Michael didn't feel like Logan was prying, but was genuinely curious about the reason for his trip to the southern continent. Besides, it was a logical question as cultivators rarely came to the southern continent. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, if he crossed the void line, he would instantly turn into a mortal. Well, I like to travel and always wanted to see what the southern continent looked like. Let me tell you about the southern continent. It's like a shiny apple that is rotten in its core. The southern continent is infested with slavery, racism, war, hunger, plague, and all the evil shit you can think of. Trust me, your place would seem like heaven after you spend a few weeks in any of the southern kingdoms. He saw Logan's smile disappear from his face for the first time. He always looked like a jolly guy, yet when he talked about the southern continent, he looked gloomy. As a mercenary, I saw my share of evil shits. This world has gone to hell, David. All we can do is ride out the wave. You know what I'm saying? It gonna sound corny, but Logan, you can still clean this world, if you follow the right person. For a moment Logan stared at Michael. Now Logan shook his head. After getting paid for this job, I'm gonna put down my hammer, buy a land, house and live the rest of my life in the most beautiful place in this world, Aston Village. Michael was disappointed to hear him, but he couldn't blame the guy for thinking to settle down. If Logan showed any signs to continue being a mercenary, Michael would have paid him to work under him. He knew forcing Logan to work under him was just a waste of time, so he decided to let Logan do whatever he wanted. Besides, it was unlikely for all of the team to survive on the island. He fought Netherals, and he knew how strong and deadly they could be. If the artifact was making the Netherals kinda smart, they might use the rainforest to their advantage, and if they did, it would be extremely hard for the team to kill Netherals. Where is this Aston Village? Giselle Kingdom. Since you like to travel, I'd be thrilled to give you a tour of our humble village after the mission. What do you think about that? Sure thing. Wonderful. Logan gave a friendly pat on Michael's back with a wide grin on his face. Everything's connected to Giselle, Michael thought to himself. Michael already decided to conquer the Giselle Kingdom first. By conquering, he wanted to control the Senate or most of the senators. He had no time or desire to play the king for now. His goal was to form two armies, a naval army using the pirates and a military using gladiators and the slaves of the southern continent. I got to take a leak. Logan rubbed his belly before leaving the place. Gaia, do you have eyes on the ship? He established a connection to Gaia through his earpiece. Yep, we're perfectly blended with the darkness and following your ship. Michael looked around slowly, except he couldn't see the Silent Reaper or any other ships following them. I can't see you, which means others can't too. It'd be tricky after the sunrise. Don't worry about us. We know their destination, so we'll make it to the island faster than you are and wait for you there, said Gaia. After exchanging a few words with Gaia, Michael cut the connection before someone could notice him moving his mouth. Marcella was always looking at everyone as she was spying on them. She seemed particularly suspicious of Michael for some reason. Michael noticed this, but he chose not to make any moves on Marcella because if everything went according to his plan, she wouldn't be a problem and most probably the undead would take care of her. Thud. Suddenly Michael heard a loud thud sound coming from one of the crates lined up near the mainsail pole. Marcella immediately raised her crossbows as the others who heard the sound turned their gazes at the crates. Captain! Did you hear that? It's coming from one of those crates. What do you mean crates? I loaded them. There's nothing but food in those crates. Michael noticed Ross leaving the helm while Marcella loaded a bolt into her crossbow, ready to fire at whatever was making the sound. Let me out. This time it was not a thud sound but a voice of a young girl came from the crates. What's going on here? Michael saw H, the man in armor, coming out of the captain's cabin after the commotion. He looked at Marcella and then at Ross. Someone's in there, Marcella coldly said. I'm coming out of this bloody crate. Chapter 238. The crew members quickly unsheathed their cutlasses to attack the intruder as soon as she came out of the crate. Pretty much everyone had their weapon in their hand except Michael and Ross. Michael really didn't think that whoever was inside the crate posed a threat, hence he still seemed calm. On the contrary, Ross' face had shock and confusion plastered on it. Don't attack, Ross declared. His voice contained a tinge of anger as well as anxiety. Since Ross was the captain, the crew nodded as they slowly stepped back a few steps from the crates. Marcella, though, still kept her crossbow aimed at the crates. Soon afterward, the top of the wooden crate slowly opened as a young girl in her late teens stood up from the crate. The girl had black hair, a beautiful oval face, round lively blue eyes, and smooth silky skin. Although the girl wasn't a kingdom-toppling beauty or something like that, she would attract many youngsters' attention. Maria, what the hell are you doing here? Marcella turned her gaze towards Ross. She was surprised. Not only Marcella but everyone on the ship was surprised by Ross' words. Ross, who is she? H asked with a deep frown on his face. His voice was not as friendly as before. The girl just stared at Ross' face, expecting him to answer the question instead of introducing herself. She's my daughter and she's leaving. Ross tried to grab her by her elbow, but she swatted away Ross' hands before he could touch her. Daughter. Ross has a daughter? What is she doing on the ship? The sudden appearance of Ross' daughter made the crew gossip as the silent atmosphere of the ship disappeared. How did she get into the crates? Jesse, the thief, opened his mouth, directing the question at Ross himself. Maria. Whatever the reason you have for being here, I don't care. You need to leave. His words were like that of the father, caring yet strict. I'm not going anywhere. I'm coming with you to the undead island. Whether you like it or not. The girl folded her arms against her chest, refusing to listen to Ross. For a few moments, no one could hear a sound except for the sound of waves hitting the ship's hull. Everyone was stunned listening to the girl. Many wouldn't dare to look in the way of the undead island. Yet Maria was trying to go to the island for some reason. Come over here this time. Ross didn't let her swat his arms away as he grabbed her by her elbow. Everyone saw Ross dragging the girl to a corner of the ship, away from prying eyes and ears. You, Marcella called out one of the crew members staring at Ross and Maria. Her shout immediately brought back the crew member to his senses. Huh. What was supposed to be in those crates? Marcella asked. Ah shit. The crew member cursed as some of the crew members began to sweat bullets. Seeing their reaction to her question, Michael's curiosity piqued. Food, we were keeping 2 days' worth of ration in those crates. Right after the crew members answered, even Michael's calm expression changed. The ship at least contained 50 people including the team. If they didn't have food to fill those bellies, they would be in big trouble before even reaching the island itself. A big person like Logan would have to eat an ample amount of food to sustain his body, except that they seem to be lacking food. Tell me you keep extra ration somewhere here. Marcella gritted her teeth. The crew member was shivering and walking backward in fear. We. Do, her anger somewhat lowered down by his answer. It could only feed everyone for a day, another crew member said. They were short on rations as the journey to the island would take 2 days. If the wind was on their side rather than against them. Maria had already compromised the mission by throwing away their food. Even Michael had to eat if he didn't want to use precious arch energy to sustain his body. H and Ross were busy talking to Maria, while the rest of them looked at each other's gloomy faces. You idiots! Marcella lost her temper. She yelled at the crew members. What were you doing when she was throwing away the food? How about I throw your useless asses off the ship? Calm down, no one's thrown anyone off the ship. Logan interfered before the situation escalated into a fight. We'll just have to manage with the ration we have and try to dash. Try to do what? You want us to fish or magically create food for all of us? Marcella rebuked. If we could divide the ration into dash. Shut up, glasses. When Jonah tried to offer a solution, she shut him up with a shout. She was really pissing off Michael. Instead of thinking of a solution to their problem, she kept throwing temper tantrums. In other words, she was being an A-grade bitch. Jonah, go and figure out how we should divide the rations, Brownie said, giving a friendly pat on Jonah's shoulder. If anyone has prior experience of fishing, get to work. I assume you keep fishing equipment in the ship. Yeah, we do. On top of being an expert on the undead, Brownie seemed like a guy with good leadership skills. After the crew members ran to the lower decks, Marcella returned to her quarters uttering no words. Do you know how to fish on a running ship, David? Logan asked, rubbing his temple. Nope, how about you? I was kinda hoping you would lend me some fish, Logan chuckled. Regardless of their current situation. What were you thinking, Maria? The Undead Island is not a place you would go to despise your father. I'm going because of you. To fix your mess. Ross was stunned as she continued. I told you not to do anything when you found the weed in my locker, but what did you do? Interrogated Johnny like he's some kind of criminal, and informed him to the academy. She was shivering in anger at her father. If it wasn't for people standing nearby, she would have shouted to vent her anger. Every time you enter into my life, you fuck up everything. Why can't you just be a normal father for once? Her voice broke at the end. I don't regret my actions, Maria. But you will if you come to the Undead Island. You're gonna jump onto the boat and go home. End of discussion. She stomped the wooden floor in anger. I can come with you and you can keep me safe, or I'll go to the island by myself and probably die. Either way, I'm going after Johnny. After Mariah's mother died because of Netheril bite, he always drowned himself in work, commanding a Spartan unit of Giselle. Maria always blamed Ross for killing her mother instead of locking her in a room. Until someone finds a cure for Netheril bite. Coupled with her anger and Ross' separation from Maria distorted their relationship. Johnny is not the right guy for you, Maria. He's not worth this risk. Please for once quit being stubborn. Ross begged her to reconsider going to the Undead Island. Yet she seemed resolute in her decision. Since this was the hunting season, there would be many ships approaching the Undead Island in the next few days. And he knew she would be able to get into any of those ships to reach the island. He would never forgive himself if he let her go alone and die. Hence he reluctantly decided to bring her along with them. At least he would be there with her to protect her. The island already took his wife away from him. He would never let the island do the same to his daughter. You stay with me all the time. Ross took a deep breath and spoke. Do you have any idea where Johnny might be on the island? We'll be much safer with the team, and they won't come looking for Johnny with us. She retrieved a map from the bag hanging on her waist. My friend took this from one of the crew members of Johnny's ship. She handed over the map to Ross. The moment he opened the map, he was stunned because the X mark on the map was the location of the artifact he's looking for. This meant that another team is looking for the same artifact as he is. He's going to the island's center. She frowned, looking at her father's serious look on his face. What does it mean? It means he's with the team that's searching for the exact thing as we are. While they were in the middle of the conversation, H came back. Ross handed over the map to him. H2 had the same look on his face as Ross when he laid his eyes on the map. Another team is hunting for the artifact, H. Do you know about this? H shook his head. Thanks to your daughter, we have no food to sustain for more than a day. Now we have to sail faster, Ross. H handed over the map back to Ross before looking at Maria. What are you gonna do about your daughter? She's coming with us. You kidding me? She's a civilian, not to mention a liability. She's already compromised the mission by throwing away the food. I won't let her jeopardize the mission further. This is my operation and my decision, H. If you don't like the way I do things, you can report me to the Senate, and we both know who they gonna support. H knew his words were nothing but the truth. Until they could find the artifact, H knew he had to rely on Ross' skills. The Senate leaders personally appointed Ross for this mission. The last thing H wanted is to piss off the Senate leaders, which would piss off his employer. This is a bad idea, H said before walking away. This is Ross said to himself. Whether he likes it or not, Ross knew H is right, but because of his daughter's stubbornness, he had no other choice. Chapter 239. While Jonah was trying to calculate the appropriate amount of ration one should consume, Michael and Logan were sitting leisurely on the ship's ledge with a fishing rod in their hand. Michael's expertise in fishing came from watching others do in the movies, while Logan had no expertise at all. Some say fishing will calm your soul. It is kinda relaxing, Logan. The full moon in the sky, the sound of the ocean, and the slowly moving sail ship made fishing relaxing regardless of Michael's inexperience in fishing. In his previous life, he never had time to enjoy such activities. Plus, he always liked to spend his little bit of free time playing video games, improving his skills as well as watching movies or TV shows. Only since he came to this world, he was able to enjoy simple things in life like fishing. Even if he couldn't catch a single fish, he was enjoying peace and calm. The little chit-chat with Logan gave him an idea about the southern continent. I heard cultivators don't sleep or eat. It's weird, but you don't have to scrounge the God's green earth just to fill your belly, huh? It's BS. It's not that cultivators don't eat or sleep, it's that we don't need to eat or sleep to sustain our body. Take me for example. I eat and sleep back there like you people here. Logan started to pour out all the questions about cultivators and cultivation as Michael answered his questions one by one. He answered Logan's questions in a manner that would tempt Logan to try to become a cultivator. Currently, it wasn't impossible for the Southerners to become cultivators after leaving the void area, aka the southern continent, but most of them tend to have extremely slow cultivation speed, as it would be difficult for their bodies to adapt to the new environment. The time flew quickly as the sun started to rise on the horizon, painting the sky in bright orange with its golden rays. The upper deck slowly began to get filled with more and more crew members. After sleeping last night with an empty belly, they all seemed weak and exhausted. The sun wasn't the only thing Michael saw on the horizon. He could see a merchant galleon ship. Look! A ship, one crew member shouted. His voice contained joy. Even Logan began to grin widely looking at a merchant ship. Merchant ships were usually filled with rations, and they could buy rations to fix their current situation. Michael put down the fishing rod on the deck, as Ross came out of the captain's cabin with his daughter. Despite the mess she caused, Maria looked refreshed after a beauty sleep. It was obvious Ross gave his potion of ration to his daughter, as any good father would do. Looking at the crew members bouncing in excitement, Ross took out his monocular to examine the merchant ship approaching them. The first thing he examined was the flag flying above the sails. The white flag had a symbol of lotus. Mail merchants. Ross recognized the ship's flag, so did H. H heaved a sigh of relief as they would be able to buy rations from the merchant ship, but Ross had black lines on his forehead. They are far away from their usual routes. Everyone had a relieved look on their faces except Ross. He knew Mail merchants and their usual routes. This area of the ocean was far away from their routes. Hence he was skeptical, unlike others. After talking to the team as well as some of the crew members, Ross realized one thing: they all blamed Maria for their situation. They were right to do so. He knew he can't keep her absolutely safe all by himself. He would need the team's support in keeping her safe after entering the island. If there was bad blood between them and Maria, keeping her safe would be a difficult task. Because of his love for Maria, he ignored all his doubts about the merchant ship. Slowly but steadily the merchant ship approached them while the crew members waved their hands at the merchant ship, calling out for help. Since Michael had no idea about the merchant ship or its routes like Ross, he too felt relieved to see the ship approaching. Although the fishing was indeed relaxing, at the end of the day he had to eat. "Oh, go get the coins." H walked back into the captain's cabin to bring the coins. The merchant ship was now only 50 meters or so away from them. Ross' tense body loosened a bit looking at the crew members on the merchant ship. They were all wearing a shirt with the Mail merchant logo embroidered on their chest. Michael was watching the ship approaching from the far end of the ship with Logan. Little by little, the merchant ship's shadow darkened the deck as the merchant ship stopped beside them. The merchant ship was perfectly aligned sideways soon. A wooden plank dropped from the merchant ship to their ship. After the merchant ship came to a halt, Michael was able to see the faces of everyone on the ship clearly. As he looked at them, he couldn't help frowning. They all seemed tense, slightly trembling. Even the one walking the plant to them had no smile on his face, which was weird because a merchant would always typically smile. Michael stared at the old man approaching them. He was partially bald and like most of the merchants, he too had a fat belly. Looking at the sweat on the old man's face and the way the merchant ship perfectly aligned sideways, He began to have a bad feeling about this. Pirates! The moment the old man stepped onto the deck, he shouted, "Boom! Boom! Boom! Boom!" But it was too late as the merchant ship bombarded their ship with cannonballs. Logan was thrown away by the force of the impact near him as Michael jumped away to cover himself. "Open fire!" Ross leaped towards the helm to move the ship after shouting an order at the crew. The sudden attack caught the crew members completely by surprise as a few of them were blown to pieces by the cannon fire. The air reeked of gunpowder and wooden splinters flew everywhere, inflicting major and minor wounds to the crew. Logan was crawling somewhere to hide behind a cover, yet the gigantic sledgehammer on his back slowed down his movements. Boom! 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 The merchant ship started their second round while Ross' crews were busy running chaotically around the deck to save their lives. "I want everything valuable on the ship." Michael heard a shout as he looked at the merchant ship to see a middle-aged man with a greasy red beard at the helm. He wore a long red coat with 2 sabers hanging on his waist. Like every pirate he met in this world, he was dirty, spoke in a thick accent, and chugging rum like water. Ha 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 ha. Also he laughed like a maniac looking at the carnage he was causing. Following his mad laughter, pirates who were previously hiding in the lower decks began to swarm out of the ship to pillage Ross' ship. "Watch out!" H shouted at Logan as Michael turned his gaze away from the maniac on the opposite ship to see one of the sail poles falling in the direction of Logan. The speed of pole falling was much greater than Logan crawling away. Therefore, if one didn't stop the pole or help Logan, he would die. Right at the moment, everyone was fighting for their lives and unable to help the others like Logan. The reason for Logan's state was the first cannonball that landed just near him. The force knocked out Logan. If someone else was in Logan's place, the force would have killed them. The pirates easily jumped onto the ship and began to attack everyone they saw. Michael quickly took the Doombringer from his back, not to kill any pirates but to save Logan. He threw the Doombringer aiming at the sail pole that was about to crush Logan. The Doombringer soared through the sky. Shit! Just when Logan was about to accept his death, he saw the sail pole blasted into smithereens. Thud. He covered his eyes to prevent the wooden splinters from blinding him, but he clearly heard a loud thud noise amidst the sound of battle. When he opened his eyes, he noticed Michael's Doombringer lying on the floor. "Get your ass up, big guy." Logan saw David reaching his hand out to help him up. Logan didn't waste any time as he quickly stood up before another disaster hit him. "I owe you one," Michael just nodded. "Let's kill some pirates." He clutched the Doombringer tighter. Logan also took his huge sledgehammer from his behind with a bloodthirsty look on his face. Since they almost killed him, Logan wanted to pay them back 10 times back by crushing them with his sledgehammer. Even though there were many people on the ship, one pirate picked Michael as his target. With a curved saber on his hand, he rushed at Michael. Looking at the pirate running towards him, he swung the Doombringer as fast as he could. His speed caught the pirate off guard. The warhammer hit the pirate's ribcage before his saber could cut Michael. The pirate's ribcage caved as he was sent flying off the ship. The blood, bone, and pieces of lung splattered across the deck. His death was horrible, even surprising Michael. Until now, Michael only used Doombringer to kill Netherils. This was the first time he killed a mortal. When he attacked the pirate, it only felt as if he was crushing a bag filled with nothing but eggshells. There was no resistance as the Doombringer crushed the pirate without an effort. Chapter 240. On the other side, Logan swung his sledgehammer, crushing 2 pirates' heads. The pirates were prepared to fight light-armed people like Marcella, but not prepared to battle fighters with heavy weapons such as Michael or Logan. Although some pirates avoided running to Logan seeing his muscular build, there were still some daredevils who tried to kill Logan. Michael was an unstoppable force on the ship. Everywhere he went, blood and bones splattered across. The busiest person on the ship was Ross as he was surrounded by 5 pirates. The pirates tried to kill the captain of the ship, ending the battle before they lose more of their brethren. "What's taking you all bastards this long? Finish them off," the pirate captain shouted at the pirates. More and more pirates came out from the lower deck after his shout. Michael really wondered how many pirates are hiding in the merchant ship. "I had enough of this." He brought down Doombringer's wrath upon another pirate. The head exploded, spraying blood and gray matter all over Michael. His gray long coat was painted red. The blood not only drenched his face, but also painted his face red. With the Doombringer in his hand, he looked like the god of war reincarnated. Since Logan was fighting relatively nearby to Michael, he noticed a few of Michael's brutal kills. When the blood-covered face turned towards him, Logan's heart skipped a beat in shock. It wasn't as he never saw someone kill pirates, but the way Michael killed them and the thick blood and the broken bones on him that shocked Logan. It gave him a devilish look. "Help Ross." Logan quickly finished off the pirate he was fighting. He nodded at David, quickly moving towards Ross. He thought David's gonna cover him, but his jaw dropped when he saw David leaping onto the merchant ship that was filled with pirates. Hey. Logan was stupefied. He never for a second thought David would decide to take the fight to the pirates without backup. There was no one to fight beside him on the ship like on Ross' ship. Anyone with some battle experience could tell there's no way David would survive fighting the pirates alone. What's he doing? Marcella also noticed David jumping to the pirate ship. She screamed at Logan, but Logan asked the same question to himself. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 300 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 600 badass points. Michael landed right on the center of the pirate ship. Unintentionally, he landed like the Iron Man, which triggered the system to award him with badass points. What the? Even the pirate captain never expected someone to jump onto his ship. He was surprised, but looking at the blood on the young man's body, his killing intent rose up. It was evident that the young man killed many of his men brutally to get painted in blood like this. Even the floor he landed quickly had tiny puddles of blood that trickled from his body, and the Doombringer. Boom. Before the pirates could attack him, Michael swung the Doombringer as fast as he could at the mainsail pole. As expected, when the Doombringer collided with the sail pole, the wooden pole blasted into countless pieces of splinters. The force of the hit knocked back a few of the pirates standing around the sail pole, while the splinters impaled some of the pirates, inflicting some amount of damage. Bastard, if it was his ship, he would have lost his mind if someone destroyed the mainsail pole, which would cost a fortune to repair. Since it was the case, as he recently captured the merchant ship and posed as merchants to pillage other ships, he was mostly just annoyed to see the youngster destroy the ship. The force also slightly pushed Michael back. Using this opportunity, one pirate quickly slashed at Michael with his cutlass. The training did make his body several times stronger, but without using arch energy, he wasn't invincible or untouchable. The cutlass cut his back as he felt a sharp pain across his back. The APD quickly injected half of the healing potion into his bloodstream. While the wound was healing, Michael didn't give the pirate another chance to cut him. When the pirate slashed the cutlass at him again, he bent his back as the cutlass brushed past his forehead. The other pirates did not let their fellow pirates fight alone. They all rushed at Michael to overpower him. Back on the northern continent, the cultivators tend to fight one by one. They often let one or two cultivators fight on the front side, while some cast supportive spells from the side. The reason cultivators avoid attacking one at the same time was the spells they cast could wound their own team. The pirates were the polar opposite of cultivators. They liked to gang up on an opponent. After evading the cutlass, it was his turn to attack the pirate who cut him. He swung the Doombringer in a circle, without doing any fancy moves. The pirate who cut him was unfortunate enough to welcome the Doombringer's head with his head. The head exploded into a blood mist, splattering skull pieces and gray matter across the place. Some gray matter ended up on Michael's face, yet it was not enough to make him show an expression of disgust. However, the other pirates weren't as strong as Michael. Seeing the headless body of their fellow pirate, they were momentarily stunned. While they were stunned, Michael swung the Doombringer again at the headless body like a hammer hitting a nail. The headless body completely mashed by Doombringer, further stunning the pirates. It was a very brutal kill. Utilizing their shock, Michael continued to swing his Doombringer at every pirate he could see. Although he was swinging the Doombringer chaotically, he was careful not to let any pirates come close enough to cut his head off. Boom, boom, boom. Many of the surrounding pirates were either killed or knocked back by the Doombringer. The more pirates he attacked, the more blood spattered across his face, obstructing his view. It slowed his move as a few of the pirates managed to strike him. Standing on the helm platform, the pirate captain saw the young man wreaking havoc among his men. Even after he was surrounded by his men, the warhammer in his hand crushed everyone in its path. "What's happening?" he mumbled to himself. He saw his men land more than a couple of times, yet he was moving as he never suffered any wounds. One could not differentiate the young man's blood from the blood of his men on his body. He was bathed in blood. The more blood ended up on his body, the more he looked like a devil. When the young man first landed on the ship, he had 20 men on the ship, but now they were reduced to 7. Looking at the dead bodies on the deck, his veins popped in anger. He wanted to call everyone on the merchant ship to kill the young man. Yet the anger blinded his rational thinking. He unsheathed his cutlass, deciding to join the fight himself. At this time, the pirate captain had no idea he was running towards his death. "Aha!" Michael let out an evil scream, continuing to crush everyone in his path. Even after killing a pirate, he never stopped swinging his doombringer, until the body turned into a bloody mess. Although 3 pirates lost all their courage and decided to run, he threw the doombringer at them, knocking them down. Grh. The pirates who were knocked down by the doombringer grunted in pain. The pirate captain saw the young man walking towards the 3 crawling pirates. He ran as fast as he could to save his men. Yet his heart skipped a beat when he saw the young man crushing their skull by stomping on them. The young man kept stomping on the dead pirates while screaming like a mad wolf. However, suddenly he stopped stomping the pirates. The pirate captain saw the young man grinning. Except for his teeth, there was no spot on his face that wasn't covered by the blood. Every muscle in Michael's body ached. Most of the healing potion and APD had been injected into his bloodstream. The battle was harder than he initially expected. If he used dual swords, the battle would have been much easier, and received a few cuts to his body, because of his 89% mastery over swordsmanship. The doombringer was supposed to be used with his spells. Since he never used any spells, the pirates did manage to land several deep cuts. Putting the doombringer on his shoulder, he slowly walked towards the pirate captain. Not that he wanted to walk slowly, but the exhaustion made walking difficult. At the moment, Michael ignored the battle noises coming from Ross' ship. The killing intent he felt towards the pirate captain cancelled all the noises around him. Michael wasn't the only one with killing intent. The pirate captain radiated more killing intent than Michael because he just lost a huge chunk of his crew power to a single man. He slashed violently at the young man as the blade deeply cut his left cheek. However, his mind went blank when he saw the wound closing up at a rapid speed. What the hell are you? In a couple of seconds, the wound completely disappeared. Michael grabbed the pirate captain by his neck without giving him a chance to swing his cutlass again, before putting the doombringer on the ground. "Captain!" The pirates who noticed the pirate captain in Michael's clutch stopped fighting as they screamed. For a few moments, the battle completely stopped as they all stared at Michael and the pirate captain who was being lifted up from the ground by his neck. "Your death." Chapter 241. Drop it. Michael's killing intent-filled voice reverberated the sea. Looking at their captain twitching in the air due to lack of breathing air. Not all of them, but a few loyal pirates dropped their cutlasses in the hope of saving their captain from the blood-covered monster. "Or he dies due. As he says." The words barely escaped the pirate captain's mouth. Soon, one by one, the pirates dropped their weapons. Quickly Marcella and the others rounded up the pirates away from their weapons. The bodies of pirates and crew members alike were lying on the deck in their own pool of blood. Most of the bodies belonged to Ross' crews because the pirates caught them off guard as well as killed a lot using cannon fire. While everyone was staring at Michael to see what he's going to do next, he threw the pirate captain to Ross. Your rules." He let Ross deal with the pirate captain and the rest of the pirates. Every single fiber in his body ached. If the fight continued, he would be forced to use arch energy, revealing his secret. "Men, take everything we want from their ship." Ross put his cutlass on the pirate captain's throat before ordering his men. They all waited for Michael to cross the wooden plank first. Only after he crossed the wooden plank, the crew members moved to the pirate ship. On Ross' ship, everyone moved away from Michael's path. Many crew members were trembling at the sight of blood-covered Michael. Even Logan avoided direct eye contact with him. He was too exhausted to deal with everything else. Logan saw him sitting down on the floor. Where did Ross find him? H asked himself. In his 40 years of life, he had seen many great Spartans and gladiators fight, but he never saw someone as bloodthirsty as the young man. Even a Spartan or a gladiator could kill a maximum of 10 men at a time, but the young man killed almost 20 men single-handedly. H was indeed terrified, yet a sly grin appeared on his face, because he knew the young man would be a great asset to complete the mission. Eventually, after an hour, Ross' crew took everything they needed from the pirate ship. Ross, what are you gonna do with them? H asked. The pirates were tied around their wrists, including the pirate captain. You took everything. Let us go. The pirate captain shamelessly spoke these words. Just an hour ago, he wanted to kill everyone and pillage the ship. Seriously, Marcella put her crossbow at the pirate captain's forehead. Let's kill these fuckers and dump their bodies into the ocean. Marcella's words made the pirates' hearts skip a beat. Put them back on their ship. I had seen enough death for a day. Fuck. Almost every pirate on the deck cursed. Their mainsail was broken by Michael, so they wouldn't be able to sail the ship. Putting them back on their ship was equal to killing them. In this part of the ocean, there weren't many islands nearby, hence swimming wasn't an option, and getting rescued by another ship might not happen. The pirate captain was the only one who felt relieved by their decision. He was fortunate enough to get a communication stone from Captain Redbeard himself. While Marcella was leading them back to their ship, the pirate captain took a glance at the blood-covered monster. He felt extremely excited to inform everything he saw in him back to Redbeard. A person who could heal like him would be worth a whole lot of coins. Next time, he would come chasing the young man with an entire fleet of Redbeard. At that time, he would avenge his fallen pirates. He's gonna make me so rich. Taking a last glance at Michael, the pirate captain left Ross' ship. After a day and a half, the sun rose at the horizon, enabling everyone to see their destination, the Undead Island. From the distance, one wouldn't see the horror hiding in the island among the ocean of thick trees. That's the place. David Logan let out a heavy breath. After seeing Michael's bloodthirsty look, Logan wasn't as talkative with Michael as before. Not only Logan but many on the ship kept their distance from Michael. This didn't irritate Michael as his current dress irritated him. After bathing in blood, he had to throw away the dress and wore a typical pirate robe. At least he found something black to wear. But even after changing his robes, he reeked in blood. Get ready, team, Ross ordered as every team member began to assemble on the deck. Ross handed over the helm to someone else. Soon, Maria came out of the captain's cabin wearing metal armor that looked too big on her. There wasn't a spot on her body that wasn't covered by metal. Now he realized what Ross was doing a day with all the armor they pillaged from the pirate ship. He put together many pieces of armor to create armor fitting to Maria. Although the silver armor would definitely slow down her movements, it would save her from getting bitten by netherils to an extent. Other than Maria, Jonah also wore a full plate and chainmail armor. Unlike Maria, it perfectly fitted him. Everyone else only wore leather armor, which would provide some protection without restricting their movements. Even Logan wore a mud-color vest-like armor as well as arm bracers to protect himself. Our mission is simple. Get to the center of the island and retrieve an artifact. Ross began to speak. Follow my lead. If you want to survive, do what I say when I say. Recently I heard another team might be hunting for the same thing as us. So we move as fast as we can. David, cover our backs. Logan, you're on the front with Marcella. Logan nodded, moving to the front. Jesse was standing on the left side of the group while Brownie was standing on the other side. The group was formed on a pentagon shape with H and Ross leading them. I'm not gonna lie, we will face undeads. Aim for their head. Finish them off quickly. After listening to Ross for another 10 minutes, the ship finally came to a halt. One by one, they jumped down on the shore, leaving the comfort of the ship. They were standing on an artistic sandy shore, as coupled with the blue sea behind them painted a beautiful picture of a scene. A line of large thick trees stood a couple of meters away from them like loyal soldiers guarding the island. Even the dark rain forest had a charm to it. We'll camp when the sun goes down, H said in a low voice. All of them walked forward without breaking the pentagon formation. Michael wondered how they were going to keep the formation after entering the forest, because just from the outside, the forest looked thicker than the Amazon forest itself. It would be near impossible to walk through the vegetation without breaking the formation. Since H and Ross were leading the group, they took out a machete to cut through the thick forest. The rainforest was far-reaching, thick, and ancient. Its canopy was competed for by oak, sycamore, birch, and many other trees unique to this world that left barely enough light through the canopy. There was no sound of an insect, bird, or reptile, no call of a human voice, only the steady rhythmical lap of the sea. The sound of the sea made everyone slightly shiver with fear for what's lying in the jungle. The heat of the sun pounded down on them as they gathered up the courage and kept moving. Silent tree limbs dropped from most trees, and a hodgepodge of flowers, which grew in abundance, enhanced the otherwise uniform backdrop. The deeper they walked into the forest, the less they heard the ocean. A hodgepodge of animal noises, which were caused by birds and vermin, reverberated through the air along with the fresh smell of the forest ground, and were accompanied by the occasional sounds of breaking twigs beneath the feet of larger animals. Bloody mosquitoes, Logan cursed, trying to swat the mosquitoes landing on him. I hate rainforests, Brownie spoke silently. Even Michael, who loved forests, had to curse this forest when he looked down to see the leeches on his boots. He never would be grateful for a pair of boots as felt now. As they were moving forward, suddenly Ross raised his hand, wordlessly telling them to halt their steps. Every single one of them looked around their environment vigilantly, expecting a surprise attack from someone or something. Michael closed his eyes for a moment to listen to any weird sounds around him. The more he concentrated, the more he could hear the sound of monkey chatter. If it was any other forest, a simple sound such as monkeys' chatter would have freaked them out, but in the undead island, the sound made them clutch their weapons tighter. Keek, keek, keek. The sound got louder and louder. They could tell they were being surrounded by probably a group of monkeys. They hoped the monkeys would not be undeads. Abruptly, the sound completely stopped. They all had a look of confusion on their faces, but soon the confusion became vigilance as they saw red gemstone-like eyes glaring at them through the darkness of the forest above them. Those eyes above them glowed while the air soon became putrid, overwhelmingly putrid. Chapter 242. Meanwhile, back on Pentown, Diana was walking around her garden, watering the plants. Tending to the garden always soothed her soul. The snow covering the garden slowly melted in the sun's heat. The long winter was finally leaving as spring was around the corner to welcome them with beauty. "There is my beautiful wife," a young but confident voice sounded in the garden. The voice instantly put a faint smile on Diana's comely face. Standing 6'3" tall, a cream-skinned man entered the garden with a gentle smile. He had a stoic feel about him. His dark brown eyes were small and sharp as swords' eyebrows on his angular face. The raven-black hair fluttered in the wind as he was walking. Just like Diana, who looked young as a girl in her late 20s, despite his real age, the man seemed to be in his early 30s. Even many youths never had toned arms, a broad torso, a well-defined waist, and toned long legs like him. He wore perfectly pressed masculine clothes. A long white winter cloth with gray wolf fur and finely made black trousers. He put the two sheaths containing his swords on one of the benches in the garden before embracing Diana and placing a gentle kiss on her rosy cheek. "Welcome home, Ethan. Geez, I missed you so much. Why didn't you come earlier? You could have spent some time with the kids." "I wanted to, Diane, but the peace talk between the dukes took longer than we all expected." Only she could see the exhaustion of battle behind his lively eyes. They had been married for so long that she could read his face like a book. "I'm sorry, Diane." His smile was replaced by an apologetic look. "For what?" "I know what happened while I was away. It almost stopped my heart." Diane, she could see the stoic manly wall he put around him slowly crumbling down. He was a husband long before he became the house lord, so even if he put up a wall to look stoic to others, he would show his vulnerable side only to Diana. "I'd never leave my family unprotected again, I promise." He squeezed her hands. She had seen the look on his face before when he fought against her brother to marry her. She smiled to ease his pain for not being there for her. "I'm fine, Ethan. The gods won't let anything happen to us. Your smile would always make everything better." The two of them made their way to the bench holding each other's hands. "Jacob, huh? I always had a bad feeling about that little fucker. What did my brother do to deserve such trash?" Ethan disappointedly shook his head. He was worried about his brother. Ever since he was little, his little brother always had his back. When they heard what Jacob did, his brother was shaken to the core. At least his little brother was blessed with a good obedient daughter to wipe off the shame Jacob brought on him. I cannot thank Ghost enough for saving you and Sabi. The mere mention of the name Ghost brought waves in her soul. As a mother, she wanted nothing but to reunite with her son. Her heart ached every time she thinks about her son. She never slept ever since he met him. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear his cries, and the images of her leaving the baby on the altar flashed in her mind. To this day, she could never forgive herself for being so helpless, so weak to be made to leave her baby in the middle of a forest. The only thing that stopped her from cultivating again was the seal inside her body. It would alert Skyhall the moment she starts cultivating again. Except for Imelda, the rest of the world was thinking that her cultivation came to an end when she was injured 10 years ago, but it was only a facade. Skyhall made sure the mother of the Dark Lord would never grow strong enough to challenge them, or reveal anything about the Dark Lord. If it wasn't for Rowena's mentor, they would have killed her the moment she gave birth to the twins. Even though the Skyhall showed her what would happen to the world if the Dark Lord was left alive, her heart and mind never accepted that her son would become evil as they claimed. An evil person never would have saved Sabrina or healed Andrews, or put his life in danger to save a stranger like her. Diane, are you all right? He noticed the slight change in her expression. The last time I heard, he was still in seclusion. I'll go to his place in person to thank him as soon as he came out of seclusion. Take me there too, she quickly said. Automatically a smile appeared on her face thinking about meeting her son again. I thought nowadays you hate traveling, he chuckled while pinching her cheek playfully. No, I just hate boring places, my lord. As they were speaking, a guard in full plate armor entered the garden. The guard was not one of the house guards but a soldier from Ethan's army. The Oracle is ready to meet you. Ethan almost forgot about the Oracle until the guard reminded him. He left the Oracle at the guest room before coming to meet Diana. The Oracle asked everyone to leave the room so she could meditate in silence. Diane, you need to see the Oracle, she's the real deal. If it wasn't for her, the peace talks between the dukes never would have happened. A tinge of anger emerged in her eyes. When Noah and Ghost were in her womb, she met an oracle who revealed that one of her sons is going to bring chaos to the world, and then informed Skyhall. Hence, she didn't want to meet another oracle. Who told you to bring an oracle here? Ethan was taken aback by surprise. For a moment, he saw the Diana he first met. This was the first time she had raised her voice after getting married to him. He was confused. Except for Imelda and Diana, no one knew anything about Skyhall, or what they did to Diana. Diana quickly realized what just happened. Taking a deep breath, she controlled the anger boiling inside her. I just heard some bad stories about these fortune tellers and I don't trust them, that's all. One could hide the truth but not bury it. Suddenly a gentle voice reverberated in the garden. Every time the voice sounded like a piece of soothing music, calming Diana's anger in a blink of an eye. The guard stepped aside to reveal a woman in full orange robes. This azure-skinned woman had a warm feeling about her. She had a square face with a rounded jaw, a flat nose, narrow lips, and her crimson eyes were sparkling with patience and mystery. Her curly long black hair rested in a bun above her head. The golden nose stud and the piercing in her both ears added a certain charm to the woman's grace. She was blessed with the muscle of an athlete and the fat of a baby. She wasn't the most beautiful woman Diana had seen, but she was the most graceful woman. She was something robust and real. She wore Rudraksh bead mala around her neck, while a red bindi occupied the center of her forehead. Oracle Ethan stood up to welcome her. The grace she radiated made Diana stand up unconsciously. I'm not an oracle but just a guide for those who are lost or searching for ways to fix your past mistakes. Diana felt like the woman was directly talking to her. The guard quickly ran to the lady with a chair to sit. Even the way she sat on the chair had grace to it. Oracle, meet my wife Diana. You have everything a woman could ask for, yet your heart is like an ocean. Never calming for a moment, the lady calmly said, looking at Diana. Ethan and Diana seated themselves back on the bench. The guard took his leave after bowing towards them. Oracle, I don't understand. As far as Ethan was concerned, Diana had everything. If she wanted anything, She only needed to ask and the entire Winston family would go to the edges of this world to bring what she asked. She does, the oracle said. Ethan couldn't help but look at both of their faces. His face had confusion written all over it. Diana, on the other hand, was lost in words. Unlike Ethan, Diana could make sense out of the lattice words. Gods wouldn't have created darkness if it was evil. The choices you made took out the darkness in your life. Hence the light in your life disappeared, as light cannot exist without darkness. Ethan was stunned to see the tears rolling out of Diana's eyes as water broke out of a dam. Her entire body was trembling. Dian, why are you crying? Oracle, what is happening here? Ethan wrapped his arms around his wife while pleading to the lady. Don't cry, my child. Fate can be such a cruel mistress. You were weak and helpless. You thought you were sacrificing the gift blessed upon you by the gods for the sake of this world and your family. Diana dropped to her knees at the lattice feet. Ethan was dumbstruck by the sight of his wife clutching the oracle's legs. He had never seen Diana cry like this as his heart started to pound against his chest. Seeing her wife like this, he could sit still. He also dropped to the ground, trying to console his wife. Dian, tell me, what's going on? He stuttered, yet Diana kept crying her eyes out. A single drop of poison is enough to poison a pot of milk. A single secret is enough to spoil the relationship between a husband and a wife. But know this, my child, the lady looked at Ethan. The world is an evil place and you are in the center of it. Anything you do without thinking it through will endanger everyone you love and care about. Chapter 243. Dian. Ethan clenched Diana's shoulders tight, forcing her to look him in the eyes. I can't, Diana stuttered. Realizing her wife was hiding something major from him, he felt a mix of anger, shock, and disbelief. She shook Diana by her shoulders. Yet no words escaped her mouth. If you know everything, you should know why I can't tell him the truth, she continuously sobbed. The lady only revealed a gentle smile. Let me tell you a story. 2 decades ago, there was a mother who was blessed with God's ultimate gifts. The lattice words turned Ethan's gaze away from Diana. Diana wanted to stop the lady from revealing the truth as she feared for her husband's life. But no words came out of her mouth. Something prevented her from speaking. The lady paused for a moment while Ethan tried to make sense out of her words. She wanted to scream that she's pregnant with twins standing on top of the world. That mother never thought a simple feeling as the feeling of her twins kicking her womb would make her so blissful. Becoming a mother to a beautiful angel was the proudest moment in her life. The mere thought of becoming a mother of twins made her the happiest woman in the world. Ethan listened to the oracle without uttering a word. Even when he was listening to the oracle, he never took his arms off of Diana's shoulders. The only thing she missed was her loving embrace of her husband. She was expecting her husband, but the one who came was a misguided mortal. Diana still struggled to stop the lady from revealing the truth. Except her entire body refused to move to her will. The misguided mortal showed the mother a vision, a glimpse of the future. What the mother saw shook her to the core. The mother refused to believe what she saw, but bad things happened to her family, like the misguided mortal predicted. Death in the family, sudden storms, natural disasters, and many things brought nothing but death. They weren't enough to convince the mother her child is responsible for all the death until her husband almost lost his life. Just like the misguided mortal claimed, little by little, Ethan began to connect with the story. When her husband came home, she wanted to tell everything. However, a powerful organization of misguided mortals put a seal on her husband before taking her away, along with 2 of the woman's blood. The misguided mortals showed the woman more glimpses of the dark future awaiting the world and her family. The misguided mortals offered the woman 2 choices: give up her child or be killed along with her family as a punishment for bringing the darkness to the world. In the days following, the misguided mortals showed the woman the changes happening in the world. The woman didn't want to believe it, but everything seemed connected to her. The place she first made love before conceiving with the twins was destroyed by a meteor. The time she went to after she got pregnant was crumbled into pieces. And the one first told her she was pregnant died in a mysterious illness, and much more. Ethan didn't want to believe the woman in the oracle's story is his wife. He refused to believe her as he wanted this to be just a story, nothing more. When the day of her delivery came, all the natural disasters occurred at once, killing thousands of people all around the world. The beautiful twins in her hands didn't make her happier as she expected. Instead, she was afraid. Even after everything, the woman begged the misguided humans to let her raise the child to be someone else, but the misguided mortals had already started the prophecy they wanted to stop. They forced the mother to make the ultimate sacrifice, leaving her child at an altar in the forest she gave birth to. The tears she shed leaving her child was the final ingredient they needed to start the ritual. Regardless of her bodice stiffness, her eyes continued to pour out tears. The anger and sadness Diana felt when the lady paused talking couldn't be described by words. Just as Ethan was about to ask Diana about the oracle's words, his right hand glowed. No, Diana broke the invincible force that prevented her from stopping and speaking. She screamed, yet the voice was muffled by the lady. Ethan felt excruciating pain as his body began to tremble. Save. Save. Him. The words barely escaped Diana's mouth. The Sky Hall placed a seal in Ethan's body, which would activate if he was to know about the existence of his other son, or what his wife went through the night she gave birth to Noah. It was a powerful seal that had its own consciousness. The oracle's words made Ethan suspect that he has another son, and it triggered the seal. Suddenly the lady opened her mouth, pointing her finger at the golden glowing on Ethan's right hand. Another light appeared out of the lattice hand as the light shot out at Ethan's hand. The moment the two lights clashed, the excruciating pain he felt instantly disappeared. Ethan! Diana screamed. She hugged Ethan using all of her strength. Diane, was it you? Embracing his wife as tight as he could, he asked. His mind believed that the mother in the oracle's story was his wife because it was obvious after seeing Diana's reaction. And what just happened, yet his dumb heart was refusing to believe it. He promised himself that he would protect his family no matter the cost, but now, he felt like he miserably failed to keep his family safe. Yes, Ethan's mind went black, getting hit by the truth. In a blink of an eye, the swords he left at one of the benches trembled before soaring through the air to him. His eyes turned blood red as the killing intent radiated from him, sent a chill running through Diana's spine. The lady spoke. This time her voice was gentle and calm, unlike before. The killing intent and the anger within Ethan quickly disappeared. Both of their emotions were also calmed by the lattice words. Ethan released Diana from his hug, turning his gaze again at the oracle. Where is my son? What ritual? The first question was asked by Ethan while Diana asked the latter. The misguided mortals believed the child's soul contained unimaginable power. They wanted to take it for themselves. To do that, they had to strip away the child's soul. Diana almost collapsed to the ground. Her body uncontrollably shivered while she felt an excruciating pain in her heart. However, the ritual didn't go as they planned, and the child's soul was split into two pieces. One part of the soul ended up in a desolate place void of any energy, while the other part of the soul remained in its body. My son, is he dead? For the first time in her life, she saw a trickle of tears roll out of Ethan's eyes. It showed her the pain he's feeling right now. That's the answer only the time could tell. The lady smiled, but Diana shook her head. I know my son is alive, I met him. Once again, Ethan was completely shocked by her words. Where is my son? Ethan shook Diana for answers. Where is our son, Diane? Where is he? The shaky voice reverberated through the garden. Ghost is our son. Tears burst out of her eyes as she collapsed on Ethan's chest. There was no expression on the lattice face. She just calmly stared at them. How do you know? I don't care what anyone says, I know he's our son. His mother. For a few moments, only silence filled the garden. No one uttered a word. How are you gonna prove it to him, my child? After a long pause, the lady asked, breaking their embrace. Ethan saw Diana struggling to answer the oracle's question. I don't know. But no matter what it takes, I will show him that he's my son. Proving and accepting are two different things, my child. The road ahead of you is filled with thorns. May the gods be with you, protecting from the corrupted ones. Just when Diana was about to ask for the lattice help against the Sky Hall, she turned into a golden light and disappeared into the sky, leaving them flabbergasted. Ethan could tell it was not teleportation or a spell, it was something else. Ethan and Diana never left the garden. The sun had fallen, yet they were still staring at the night sky without leaving the garden. Diana held his arms tightly. It took her a great effort to convince him not to do anything rash that would attract the Sky Hall's attention towards them. When Rowena was selected as the Holy Maiden of Sky Hall, Ethan felt extremely proud, but now, it felt like Rowena was kept as a prisoner in Sky Hall. Even if he's our son he is Ethan. How are we gonna explain to him that we failed to protect him? It was me who failed to protect my son. I was too weak. After hearing the whole story from Diana, he didn't blame Diana or anyone else except Skyfall and himself for not being able to protect his family. Knowing that he could do nothing against the Skyfall, he felt so weak and helpless. When we were a happy family, our son grew up as an orphan. How many hardships would he have gone through? Why did this happen to us? How could our son be evil? Dark Lord? What does that even mean? Chapter 244. The sky was black tranquility married to the poetry of stars that filled the sky like pale corn into freshly turned ground. It was the softness that called the body and brain to rest, and let the heart go to its steady rhythm. Night came as a reward of sorts, a restfulness above to calm anyone's soul, except it couldn't calm Ethan's. The more Ethan thought about everything, the more questions emerged in his mind. Eventually, he ended up with more questions than answers. Diana's heart bled looking at the tears running out of Ethan's eyes. No matter how hard he tried, he was unable to stop the tears from forming in his eyes. How am I gonna protect House Winston when I couldn't even protect my wife and son? I tell I'll be alright, Ethan. No, it won't be, Diana. You were right, we cannot go to war with Sky Hall. At least not with our current strength. It took an immense amount of effort for Ethan to sit still, controlling his killing intent towards Sky Hall. Every single fiber in his body wanted him to fly to Sky Hall and kill the ones responsible for what happened to his family. However, years of leading the Winston family and the maturity he achieved made him think rationally rather than act on impulse. As the mysterious oracle said, if he did anything without thinking it through, would only put his loved ones in harm's way. First, we need to find a way to break the seal in your body. If you could cultivate again without alerting them, we'll be one step closer to saving our son. Ethan wiped the tears off of his face, as an unwavering resolution to fix his mistakes appeared in his eyes. His biggest mistake was being so weak, and he decided to fix it once and for all. Rowena and Noah must not know about this, Dian. If they knew what the Sky Hall did to you and their brother, they would wage war against him without a second thought, especially Noah, he said, gently wiping off the tears away from his wife's face. Although he knew winning a war against Sky Hall is near to impossible, he had to look confident as a good husband and a leader should. Even if the odds were against him, he wouldn't forgive himself if he did nothing to save his son. Our son, he's staying in the Sunrise sect, right? Yeah, our son is the core disciple of the sect. One could see the pride in her eyes as clear as a day. She knew her son earned that title. Let's just go there. She let out a quick bark of laughter in disbelief. As much as she loved to see her son again, she didn't want to alert the Sky Hall, which might be watching her every move. We can form an alliance with the sect. The least we can do for our son is make his life better, and keep anyone from harming him. What do you say, Dian? I'll go get ready. Her face brightened instantly like someone holding a candle in front of her face. Before he could remind her that it's night, and they should leave in the morning, she ran back into the house to get ready. The mountains around the Sunrise sect looked like a majestic painting. They rose in snow-white brilliance, a silent invitation to good for the soul not to accept. Upon the rise of the sun, the forests covering the mountains were so snow-white. The forest seemed calm on the outside, but under the snow-blanketed canopy, a blood trail could be seen on the ground. One could follow the blood trail to see a man running for his life. He was breathing heavily. His clothes were partially burned as well as most of the skin on his back. Regardless of the wounds on his body, the man kept running. After running for an hour, he finally stopped running. Who is there? The man with the wounds stumbled onto a tree in exhaustion. He stared in the direction the voice came to see a man holding a spear walking from the darkness of the forest. Axel. Regardless of the wounds and blood on the man's body, he was immediately recognized by the man holding the spear. Finally, Axel let his body collapse thinking that he's safe from it. Is that Axel? What happened to him? Are we under attack? Ari, what happened to Axel? Ari, the man who was dragging Axel to the camp, was swarmed by his fellow bandits. No one knew there's a bandit camp in this part of the forest. The ocean of trees, the thick canopy as well as the predators roaming around the forest prevented anyone from the Sunrise sect from finding out the whereabouts of their camp. Ever since a disciple was killed in the forest, the sect was hunting every single bandit hiding in the forests. The forest was endless, yet the size of the forest never stopped the sect from hunting the bandits. Ari dragged Axel through the knee-high snow to one of the huts. Ari, there were 3 bandits inside the hut. Unlike the bandits patrolling the area around the camp, these 3 bandits wore thick fur-covered winter clothes, covering every part of their bodies to keep their bodies warm. It indicated their higher status among the bandits. Put him here, one of the 3 bandits pointed at the table on the hut center. The other 2 bandits quickly wiped off the maps, documents, and things lying on the table as Ari put Axel's unconscious body on the table. Open his mouth. Ari forced open Axel's mouth as one bandit poured a healing potion into his mouth. The healing potion was not as dark green or consistent as Michael's potion. This potion was watery, consistent with pale green color. Where's Captain Quinn? While the potion was slowly healing Axel's wounds, he asked the 3 lieutenants. He went to meet a client. Do you know what happened to him? Did he say anything? Ari shook his head. He collapsed before I could ask what happened, but isn't it obvious? His camp must have attacked. Just like the others, the 3 lieutenants stared at each other in silence for a second before one of them said, when he woke up, ask him what happened just in case. He'll go and bolster our security. Bolster the security? Are you kidding me? We have to leave now. The more camps they lost, the more tension rose among the bandits. Many started to rebel against the lieutenants while some even fled the kingdom fearing for their lives. This camp was one of the few last camps remaining around the forests of the Sunrise sect. The only reason many bandits were still sticking around was Captain Quinn's promise to them. He said he would take them to the main camp in the forests of the royal land. Yet they were waiting to move for 2 months. Calm down, Ari. We can't be sure of what happened to him. Captain Quinn already sent a team to hunt it down. I'd bet they already killed it. He did. Yes. You know Captain Quinn, he would always put his men first before the bounty. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr thunderous roar echoed through the forest. Eris' body became rigid as he felt a cold chill in his spine. He dropped the spear in his hand, losing all the courage in his heart. The lieutenant seemed no worse than him. He was shivering and mumbling something under his breath. The fear of death overwhelmed their senses. Soon the silent forest became chaotic. Ari could hear the screams of agony outside the camp. "No. I can't die," Ari mumbled in fear. At this moment, there was nothing more important to him than his own life. Therefore he decided to escape, only to get stopped by the two lieutenants in the hut. "You can't leave. Go fight that thing. It's an order." "Fuck off." Ari shoved them away forcefully. Ari was stupid enough to stick around even after the sect started to hunt them down like prey. But he was not stupid enough to obey a suicidal order. He ran as fast as he could to the outside. The moment he stepped outside of the hut, his heart stopped looking at the embodiment of the death and carnage itself, Nightmare, the dragon of Sunrise sect. The camp huts and trees around the camp were reduced into nothing but charcoal. The waves of heat from the dragon fire melted the mini bandit's skin off. The dragon before Ari was huge with shiny crimson scales and two horns protruded out of its head. "Where is Quinn?" His bladder betrayed him when he heard the dragon speak. Yet the wetness around his crotch instantly disappeared due to the heat coming from the fire around him. Away crimson-red fire that had a mix of violet streamed out of the dragon's mouth, turning the bandits trying to escape into ashes. At the moment, only the lieutenant's camp was not on fire. Ari wanted to run before the dragon's gaze could fall upon him, yet his body refused to move. He stood still in overwhelming fear. Everyone he knew as dead burned alive, their screams filled with agony now replaced by the sound of fire cracking the woods. The moment the dragon's red eyes fell on him, he screamed as loud as he could unconsciously. The last thing Ari saw before everything turned black was the dragon's gigantic claws approaching him. How could Michael be the Dark Lord without some awesome Dark Lord powers? Let's be patient, my dear readers. Your wait will be worth it. And oh, expect one more oracle, and that's it for oracles and future glimpses. Chapter 245. Nightmare ripped open the last remaining hut with his razor-sharp claws. Although Nightmare wasn't as tall as a full-grown dragon, he did stand nearly 9 feet tall. Oh my god! No, 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 no. The two lieutenants stumbled backward in fear. Nightmare moved his head closer to the two lieutenants. The hot smoke coming out of his nostrils brushed past the two lieutenants. Like many other bandits, they peed themselves. They never thought they would see a dragon this much closer. The fire reflecting on its crimson-red scales made him more terrifying. Let's go for a ride. Nightmare's rage-filled growl almost made the two lieutenants faint. He swept the two bandits off the ground before flapping his red wings to take off. The wings sent a shock wave that was powerful enough to put out the fire around him. Nightmare flew higher and higher into the sky. Realizing how high they are in the sky, they stopped struggling under Nightmare's clutch. If they were to be put down by the dragon, they couldn't even imagine the output. Where are you taking us? Nightmare didn't answer as he continued to soar through the sky. After flying for another 10 minutes, Nightmare started to descend. The bandits expected the dragon to bring them to the sect, except the dragon brought them to the middle of the forest. Although they were flying for only 10 minutes, they crossed several kilometers. Everywhere the bandits turned, there was nothing but trees. The thick canopy barely let the light through, hence their surroundings were dark and gloomier. The moment Nightmare released them, their instincts to escape kicked in as they tried to crawl away. However, an invisible force prevented them from moving any further. Soon the force lifted them up in the air. The bandits hovered in the air while Nightmare began to interrogate them. Tell me where Quinn is and I'll grant you a quick, painless death, or I'll slowly roast you two like chicken and eat you. Nightmare's body began to glow more and more, indicating the dragon's flame forming inside his body. He's in Royal Land meeting someone. That's all we know. Nightmare was slightly taken aback by surprise. He never expected the two lieutenants to break so easily. The bandits he interrogated before either tried to fight him and died or never answered him until Nightmare roasted them alive. Ever since Jack was found dead, he was hunting the bandits day and night. He blamed himself for not being there when Jack was murdered. The guilt drove Nightmare crazy. After decimating many bandits' camps in the forest around the sect, Nightmare finally found the leader of these bandits, Quinn. Considering they had no leads whatsoever in the murder of Jack, Nightmare targeted the bandit leader, who's responsible for all the bandit camps around the sect. He wanted to find the murderer before Gaia comes back. Jack was an annoying little brother to her. The whole sect was afraid of telling Gaia about Jack's death. Including Nightmare, everyone knew she would go berserk. His death affected the entire sect more than anyone would imagine. Jack was one of the disciples who never left the sect even when the sect was on the verge of closing. He was loyal to the core. Nightmare stared at the two bandits for a few seconds. The look in their eyes told Nightmare that they weren't lying. Please let us go. Please, the bandits begged Nightmare to let them go. If it was before Jack's murder, Nightmare would have found some mercy in his heart, but after he saw Jack's body, he felt no mercy for kings like bandits. The more he grew, the more he understood the meaning of Ghost and Gaia's words. They always told him to be ruthless and unforgiving. After Jack's death, he realized why. There was someone in this world who was ruthless enough to kill a kind, loving person like Jack in cold blood, so he knew what this world would do to people like Ghost, Gaia, and him. No, Nightmare sent a puff of hot breath towards the flowing pirates. The bandits tried to wiggle, but the hot breath melted them in a blink of an eye. Even their bones falling onto the ground were partially melted by Nightmare's breath. He felt no pity for the bandits. As far as he was concerned, the sect would be safer with fewer or no bandits in the forests. With another flap, he took off into the sky. It was time for him to return to the sect. Except for a few black clouds of smoke coming out from the forests, the mountains of the Sunrise sect looked calm and beautiful. Have we reached the sect yet, Felix? Diana was sitting on seat edge of the carriage with Ethan by her side. We will soon, my lady, the old man driving the carriage said with a chuckle. This was the 10th time she had asked the question. After asking the old man, she opened the window to see the view outside. What she saw outside mesmerized her and Ethan. The last days of winter always had a calming beauty to them. The roads were previously blanketed by snow, but now there were more puddles along the road than snowbanks. The little sprouts coming out of the snow-covered trees seemed like little babies waving at them. The sound of birds chirping sounded louder than the wheels of the carriage itself. Perhaps charming was the name to the effect the birds provided for them. Is it me, or does the carriage feel less bumpy? Ethan asked. Even when he was traveling in Pentown, the carriage would be bumpier, but after they entered River Town, the ride was extremely comfortable and smoother. It's the paved roads, my lord. The masons who paved Royal Land, the same masons paved these roads too. Oh. Ethan was pleasantly surprised. Unlike Diana, he had little idea about the sect's current state of affairs. Diana did say the Sunrise sect was not as declined as before, but he never expected the sect could afford the masons of Royal Land. Wow. Wow indeed, Lord Winston. My friend's niece recently got into the sect. She tried to get into the Morning Star first, but the teachers who came to oversee the selection rejected her. The little girl was pretty heartbroken. Every time Ethan travels with Felix, the old man would make his ears bleed with stories, gossip, and all sorts of things. Most of the time, Ethan would pretend to be cultivating, or just nod without paying any attention to the old man. However, now he was genuinely interested to hear everything about his son's sect. Couple of my buddies who often traveled to the Sunrise sect recommended it to my friend. I don't know how, but he convinced her daughter somehow to apply for the sect, and now every time he sees my buddies, he would take them to free meals. Why? Ethan asked. The old man turned back for a moment, sensing the genuine curiosity in Ethan's voice. It made the talkative old man even more talkative. You see, my lord, the girl was at the formation core stage when Morning Star rejected her. It wasn't a surprise, considering those people only take the best of the best. And the girl certainly isn't one. Formation core at age 20 is mediocre at best. However, after joining the Sunrise sect, she reached the body refining stage level 5 in just 3 months, and that's on par with some of the talented noble kids. Apparently, all the disciples in the sect are getting free pills and potions to help with their cultivation. I mean, many nobles are lining up in the sect to buy those things, yet the disciples getting them for free. The old man paused for a second and went on. The sect has to thank ghosts for their change of fortune. I don't think another 5-star alchemist would be willing to give his pills and potions for free, even if they were his brothers and sisters of the same sect. His words about Michael put a smile on Ethan's face. Have you seen him, Felix? No, my lord. But I heard great things about him. Do you want to hear it? Yes. I mean, it's to know more about figures such as him. Ethan quickly hid his jumpiness. Wanting to pour out the stories in him, the old man didn't notice anything weird about Ethan's curiosity. Stop. Just as the old man was about to talk about Ghost, they heard a shout as the old man stopped the carriage quickly. Diana slightly put her head outside the window to see a young man in a full black uniform walking towards them. The young man's black dress kinda resembled the dress her son wore. Soon, the security carriages following Ethan's carriage came to halt as soldiers of the Winston family surrounded Ethan's carriage as they were trained. Yet, in front of 30 guards in full armor, there was no fear in the young man's eyes. What's all this? The young man asked Felix, his voice neither arrogant nor afraid. Instead of letting Felix sort everything out with the young man, Ethan himself stepped out of the carriage. Only after seeing a core-strengthening level 8 cultivator, the young man's calm expression changed. Kid, why did you stop us? Ethan asked. How may I address you, sir? It's Lord Winston of the Proud House Winston. We are going to meet with Sunrise sect leader Claire, one of the guards answered the young man. With all due respect, Lord Winston, the sect is closed to outsiders. Sect leader Claire and Nightmare's orders. Closed? Why? Ethan asked with a confused face. He wondered what made them close the sect, as it was pretty unusual for a growing sect to close their doors on outsiders. Recently, one of our brothers was killed in the vicinity. Until we find who was responsible for such evil deed, the sect is closed. Roar. The young man stopped talking as the Winston soldiers immediately retrieved their weapons after hearing a thunderous roar. Even Ethan clenched the sword hilts on his waist when he heard the roar. A few seconds after the roar, a huge shadow cast down on them, darkening the area. What the? Ethan's jaw dropped as he looked up at the sky to see a dragon descending. Dragon! Protect Lord Winston! Dragon attack! Holy gods! The guards immediately surrounded Ethan and the carriage with the swords in their hands. Felix the old man was as pale as a white paper looking at the dragon. When the dragon landed on the ground, Ethan saw its crimson-red eyes staring at everyone. Stand down, the young man shouted at the guards before they could do something stupid like attacking a freaking dragon. Who are these people? The dragon's voice made the guards even more terrified. You've grown, little dragon. Nightmare's vertical slit pupil became rounded when he heard a familiar voice. He stared at the carriage standing on his two legs. Lady Diana. Dien, go inside, Ethan ordered, but still, his wife stepped outside the carriage with a smile on her face. Lady Diana. Everyone was stunned to see the dragon tilt its head looking at Lady Diana. Gently brushing off Ethan's hand, she walked forward with no fear in her heart. Michael's action will be resumed in the Chapter 246. The Winston family soldiers tried to stop Diana from walking towards the dragon, yet their efforts were in vain. Ethan didn't stop her but followed her behind. Although the dragon's physique and innate ability would give the dragon an edge if they battled, he was confident enough in his strength to defeat the dragon if it tried to harm them. Relax everyone, I know him. Diana waved off at the guards to lower their weapons. Taking a few more steps, she came closer to the point where Ethan could sense the heat radiating from the dragon's body. They both looked up. In Ethan's eyes, there was a mix of amazement and caution, while in Diana's eyes, there was nothing but kindness and warmth. She reached out as Nightmare gawked reluctantly for a moment, before slowly lowering his head to graze her hand with his face. The soldiers were stunned to see Diana tame such a majestic, terrifying creature. Good dragon, Diana gently stroked Nightmare's scaly head. Somehow her presence made him calm. I guess you can go be on your way to the sect then. Realizing Nightmare and the woman know each other, the young man stepped aside from the paved road. Nightmare opened his eyes but kept his head in her hands. Ghost is in seclusion, Lady Diana. I know. We're here to see sect leader Claire. Finally, Nightmare took his head back from her hands. He stared at the 4 carriages standing behind Diana, as well as the core-strengthening man, who Nightmare guessed Diana's husband for a few seconds. This is my husband, Ethan Winston. Ethan, meet Nightmare. Pleasure to meet you, Lord Winston. The pleasure is mine. Ethan was surprised by the dragon's behavior. Many would describe a dragon as ruthless, deadly, terrifying, and many other adjectives, but polite would not be one of those words. However, the dragon in front of him spoke in such a cultured manner. After being forced to sit in all the classes conducted by the elders, Nightmare shed some of the bad habits he picked from Gaia. For instance, giving respect to those who deserved it and conduct in a respectful manner. For a couple of weeks, the disciples were terrified to sit with a dragon or to see him, but after a while, they treated him like one of them. But it didn't mean they weren't afraid of them, they just accepted to live with him. Follow me, Nightmare took as the force of his wing flap pushed back many guards and made the horses even more terrified. It took them a few minutes to calm the horses before starting to follow the dragon. You conveniently forgot to mention he has a dragon, Dien. Then I wouldn't have seen the look on your face, she giggled. Looking at his wife being happy after a rough couple of days, he was glad he decided to come here. The paved road made following the dragon much easier. Even going up on the mountain never felt bumpy or difficult. Eventually, when they reached the flat land, they began to see more black uniformed disciples around the area. Some were playing in the snow, some sat under the trees, cultivating, some were carrying bags that looked heavy. Other than the disciples, it was the buildings and the construction sites that surprised Ethan the most. He could tell these buildings were built in dwarven architecture as the base and modified a little. Each building was surrounded by either a garden or garden with a fountain. Instead of cutting down all the trees, they built the buildings without destroying the trees around them, which was the real beauty of the sect. Regardless of the winter, he could see the construction works going on at full speed. Many disciples, including female disciples, were helping however they could. For a sect that was declining until recently, they're turning the tides pretty fast. After an exhausting day, Michael finally laid under a tree to rest. He looked up at the sky through the small gaps in the canopy. The sky was filled with dark rain clouds. The thunderclaps indicated the arrival of a heavy downspout. Rain was the last thing he wanted in this godforsaken rainforest. Others weren't so different from Michael. They too chose a tree to rest their bodies. A few meters away from them, broken money limbs, as well as monkey dead bodies could be seen. This was the third wave of the monkeys they fought even since they stepped into the forest. The undead monkeys were so weak and fragile as they were more of an annoyance than a threat except for people like Jonah. Surprisingly, Ross' daughter Maria was trained in the arts of the spear as she defended herself well instead of relying on her father. Keek. Ah shit, here we go again. Michael heaved a sigh of exhaustion. Even if those monkeys bit him, he wouldn't turn into an undead, but he had to put on a show so the team members suspect him of something. Especially Marcella, who was always keeping an eye on him for some reason. After he massacred the pirates single-handedly, she became wary of him. The only silver lining of killing these monkeys was their colors. Never before Michael had seen colorful monkeys such as violet, pink, bright red, and green monkeys. Only if they stink less. These monkeys smelled so bad that he wanted to cover his nose in the middle of the fight. Soon the little monkeys surrounded them for the fourth wave of attack. Michael looked up at the tree he was resting under to see at least 10 colorful monkeys staring at him. Their skin was slowly peeling off from their bodies, but that never seemed to slow down the monkeys. To make the fight less exhausting, he pretended the monkeys were cricket balls and his Doombringer was the bat. Every time a monkey took a leap at him, he would swing the Doombringer, sending the monkeys flying into the trees. His swings contained enough force as the monkeys exploded when they hit the trees. An undead monkey jumped at Michael from the tree above, screaming as loud as it could. Its skin from the face peeled away while it was in the midair, revealing the skeleton of its face. Sixer. He swung the Doombringer at the monkey. The moment it came into contact with the monkey, the little creature's skull cracked open as the brain matter splat all over his face. Fuck. Gross. Michael spat in disgust. He never thought the little fucker was so fragile. Heek. The horrible death of their fellow friend not at all slowed them down from leaping at Michael. He continued to swing his Doombringer. Many swings ended up hitting the monkeys, but still, some of the monkeys managed to escape the swings. Michael quickly shook his body as he picked up a rock from the ground. He smashed the rock into the purple monkey while swinging the Doombringer in his other hand. The rock split open the monkey's head, killing it instantly. This time he closed his mouth so none of the disgusting bits would end up in his mouth. Just like in the Netherlands, the black goo oozed out of the dead monkey's body. Marcella was standing on a branch. The higher vantage point gave her a perfect spot for killing the monkeys on the ground, but when the monkeys swarmed the tree she was standing on, she began to have a hard time. Michael thought since she was using a crossbow, she would have a hard time fighting in close combat. But when he saw Marcella taking out a dagger and stabbing the monkeys in their head, he was proved otherwise. The way she fought showed him that she's a well-trained person in both long and close-range combat. Let's move, Ross shouted. The monkeys kept coming at them. Ross knew soon they would be overwhelmed with superior numbers. The team quickly began to move deeper into the forest. David, Logan, hold them. H shouted at Michael and Logan. Go, go, go. Michael and Logan quickly moved towards the team. The two of them fought side by side to keep the monkeys from following the rest of the team. Some of them did manage to follow the team, as the monkeys used the tree branches to travel while they were on the ground. Damn monkeys! Logan screamed as he kept swinging his sledgehammer. Coupled with his body strength, each time a monkey came into contact with the sledgehammer, the black ooze splattered across. Let's go! Michael shouted, hearing more and more screams. He covered Logan while he was retreating back into the forest. David. Go. I'll follow you. Since it wasn't the place nor the time to argue, Logan ran deeper into the forest, following the team's trail. After seeing David massacre a group of pirates single-handedly, he knew David is a better fighter and freak than him. Hence, he trusted David to take care of these annoying monkeys even if their numbers were in the 60s. Michael turned back to see if they had all disappeared from his sight. He could count at least 50 monkeys surrounding him. They all weirdly targeted him. Time to wrap up, his lips slightly curved upwards as he put the Doombringer on the ground. He raised both his arms at the monkeys. Wind blast. Chapter 247. The force of the wind fired out from his hands blasted the monkeys in a blink of an eye. Many weak fragile monkeys exploded into black mist before even hitting the trees. His smile turned into a disappointed look. He really wished he could get experience points from all these dead monkeys. Or at least some badass points. At least he wanted to reach core formation level 8 somehow before competing in the championship tournaments. Putting his thoughts aside, he looked around to see if there's any monkeys remaining, but there wasn't a single monkey in the surroundings. I wonder if Dalar will be able to control these netherals. He couldn't help asking this question to himself. If Dalar was able to control them, he would have an army of the dead under his command to do his bidding. Is everyone all right? Somewhere deeper in the forest, finally Ross and the group stopped running. Ross asked as he noticed their missing teammate. Where's David? I don't think that freak made it, Maria said. Everyone turned their gazes at Logan as he was the last person to see David. How come? It'd take more than some undead monkeys to kill him, Logan said with utmost confidence, even though the overwhelming number of monkeys he saw before leaving David's side made him question the odds of his survival. Well, camp here for 2 hours, and if he's not here by then. Ross did not finish his sentence, but everyone knew the meaning of his words. Except for Marcella and Maria, the rest had gloomy expressions on their faces. Not because they were thinking David died, but because he was the strongest of them all, and this part of the forest was said to be the least dangerous. If they lost their strongest in this area, they couldn't even imagine what would happen in the center, the most dangerous place on the island. Those monkeys were annoying. They all freaked out when they heard a sudden voice. The direction the voice came was dark. They all stared at the darkness as slowly a figure merged from that darkness. David. Logan grinned, sighing inside. Did you kill them all? It was Jonah who asked Michael the question. Michael just shook his head. Of course not, there were so many I had to back off. Thank gods they didn't follow me. The overwhelming number of monkeys as well as the way he spoke made them believe him. They didn't want to believe he could kill all those undead monkeys. After all, he was just a normal human being like the rest of them. Weird. Normally undead won't stop until either they're dead, or their prey is. Marcella threw a doubtful glance at Michael. It was obvious she didn't believe a single word that came out of his mouth. If you have doubts, you better go and ask those monkeys. Michael couldn't care less about what she's thinking. After getting Ross to guide him to the artifact, he would show them his true powers. At that time, Marcella might end up as another victim of Lucifer. Humph, Marcella snickered before turning her back. Logan walked towards Michael while the others began to set up a temporary camp on the ground. After the long battle with the monkeys, they wanted to get some shut-eye, even if it's only for 2 hours. I knew those monkeys can't stop you. Yeah, you bet. The two of them fist-bumped like best friends. It's your turn to watch, big guy. I need some shut-eye if I'm gonna fight another undead. Logan is already on the job, my friend, he said, placing his hand on the chest in a funny manner. While Logan was watching over them, Michael lied down under a gigantic tree with heart-shaped leaves. The roots created a hollow place on the ground that Michael used as the bed. The sky still looked menacing with all the dark clouds above them. If he was back in his sunrise sect home, he would have loved the thunderclaps because he loved sleeping during the heavy rain. The warmth of his bed, the sound of rain droplets hitting the roof, the smell of the ground. He loved those things. However, at this moment, he wished it would not rain. The forest was bad as it is with all the leeches and undead. The last thing he wanted was heavy rain. Hello human, are you there? Just as he was about to close his eyes, he heard Gaia's voice in his head. Yep, he whispered. I sent those pirates a rescue ship with our little spiders. Good. I want them to spread rumors about me as far as they can. Where are you now? We are at the far north of the island. I can come to you if you need my help. Her voice sounded like she really wanted him to say yes. If she were to come to him, it would definitely complicate his plans. Therefore he couldn't say yes. However, he did have a task that she could help him with. There's another team hunting for the same artifact as we are. Try to locate them and kill them before they could get their hands on the artifact. The glimpse of the future turned him more ruthless. Just his order to kill them without sparing their lives made Gaia realize this change. If it was before, she knew he would have told her to chase them away, or stop them by giving them a small beating. You sure you want me to kill them? I could just chase them away from the island. They came into this hive of undead searching for that artifact, so we can't expect them to back off unless you can do something that really scares the shit out of them more than the undeads themselves. You think you can pull something like that? For a few moments, Michael heard no answer from Gaia. Do what you want, just keep them from reaching the artifact before me. Will do, just put one of those drone thingies into the interlinked space ring. Already done that. After casting the wind blast to kill those monkeys, Michael refilled the APD and transferred the drones to Gaia's ring before coming to regroup with them. Contact me when you're done with them. What's happening on your end? I'll tell you everything later. Now I need to get some sleep. Is it raining out there? It must be, since you're so desperate to sleep rather than talking to me. Goodbye. Michael cut the connection. He would have continued to talk to her if Logan wasn't coming in his direction. He willed the system to turn off the earpiece before closing his eyes. Ever since he saw the future, he rarely slept. When he first came to this world with the system, he really thought this was going to be some fun-filled journey of reaching the top, crushing his enemies, and having everything he wished for, but now he was forced into saving this world. Although he already decided to save this world by conquering it, he was not completely doing it for the goodness in his heart. He was doing it for himself. The world he saw was not suitable for an immortal such as himself in the future. How could he live in a world that turned into hell? If he wanted to live his life to the fullest, enjoying every second of it, he had to first save the world. Besides, after witnessing the future world, he definitely felt less guilty about killing people such as the other team who's hunting for the artifact. Wakey, Michael slowly opened his eyes to see Logan patting his shoulders. It felt like he just closed his eyes, but the 2 hours went by like a flash. Letting out a short yawn, he stood up and brushed off the dust on his dress. The rest of the team seemed like they never slept. Sleep well. Like a baby. Logan's brows arched up slightly. Only you can sleep like a baby in a place like this. It's because you were protecting us, big guy. Michael patted Logan's back, chuckling. Haha, very funny. The rest of the team gathered their things while Ross took a glance at the map once again. If he was correct, they were 8 hours walking distance from the river, where the recon team would be waiting for them with a boat. If we go this way, we have a better chance meeting with Johnny, Maria whispered to Ross, pointing at a different path leading to the river than the one marked on Ross' map. You saw those monkeys? If something happened to Johnny, her voice was mixed with anger and desperation to save her boyfriend. Ross stared between the map and his daughter. It's not like this new path is less dangerous than this one, Ross convinced himself, for the sake of his daughter. If he were to find Johnny first before he could reach the center, the better. But he knew he cannot let the team know that he's taking a detour for his daughter. Hence he decided to omit the itty-bitty information of him taking a detour. Be at your best, people. We'll face deadlier undeads on our way to the river. Thankfully, Ross didn't waste time giving them any pep talks which would have bored the heck out of Michael. He wanted to get the artifact as soon as possible, so he could finally quench the thirst for curiosity. Let's move. Chapter 248. Somewhere else in the Azer continent, Noah, Alicia, and Maisie were flying above the clouds. As usual, Norvin was comfortably lying on Noah's shoulder while munching on 100-years-old dragon fruit. Finally, we're getting promoted to actual guardians from trainees, Maisie said excitedly. Her big round eyes sparkled thinking about being a guardian, which would end all the power struggle between her family and their rivals. It's time they promoted us, but I still feel like we're just filling the shoes of that 4 guardians who got exiled because of this new freak roaming around calling himself Lucifer. I'd say we should thank him. Haven't you seen the drop in the crime rate? It's crazy what fear could do to petty criminals, Norvin replied to Alicia. The little girl Maisie looked up at Noah to hear his thoughts, but he remained silent. He couldn't cultivate peacefully in the last couple of days. Every time he closed his eyes to cultivate, he could hear Abel's voice. It had been almost 7 months since Abel disappeared. Although he didn't want to believe it, Noah had a feeling that Abel lost his life inside the nether realm. The guilt of failing to save his friend's life had become a thorn in his heart. Shut up, monkey. One day or another, an innocent person gonna up in that psychopath's crosshairs. The world will go to hell if everyone starts to play judge, jury, and the executioner. You're such a hypocrite. How many people have we killed so far? We were defending ourselves. We didn't go searching for people to kill or pass judgments on people. That's what King Courts and the Guardian Guild are for. If those scumbags were to go to the Guardian Guild or Kethin King's court with the complaint against us instead of trying to kill us, we would have gladly cooperated as we weren't guilty of anything. So you're saying unless it's defending ourselves, we aren't allowed to kill and seek justice with the King's court or the Guardian Guild? Yes, Maisie tried not to get herself into the argument between Norvin and Alicia. In her mind, they were both right as she wouldn't be able to pick a side. However, the little girl did hate the idea of someone running around kidnapping, torturing, and killing people in the name of justice. Wow, Norvin and Alicia stopped arguing when they saw a majestic palace floating above the clouds. 12 majestic marble pillars held the triangular roof. The banner of the Guardian Guild fluttered in the wind along, radiating a noble aura around the palace. The flying angel, Noah mumbled under his breath. He had seen countless majestic structures made by various races, yet this was the most grandeur of them all. He wondered how they made such a gigantic palace fly around. A few other figures could be seen flying into the palace at high speed. Wasting no time, Noah and his companions flew straight into the palace. The moment they crossed the 12 pillars, they were immediately teleported into a large spacious hall where they saw Peyton and Zanali waiting for them. What happened? Noah noticed the gloominess on Zanali's face. The usual shine on the redhead's face was nowhere to be found. Aside from Zanali, Peyton also looked very serious. The Guardian Prophet is on her way here, Peyton whispered, although there were only a handful of people standing in the hall. Who's she? Some kind of fortune teller? Norvin tilted his head bewildered. Thop. Ouch! Alicia slapped the back of Norvin's head. Shut your mouth, damn monkey. She's someone who's extremely important to the guild. Apparently, the last time she came out of seclusion was 50 years ago to help the Guardians put an end to Zullo, the necromancer. If she's coming today, it must be something extremely important. Only Noah seemed to know who Zullo is while the others had a confused look on their faces. They kept gawking at Noah and Peyton for either of them to explain, except they didn't utter a word. Soon more and more Guardians arrived in the hall. Some were even at the soul refining stage. No matter how powerful one was, they all seated themselves on the ground, waiting for the Guardian Prophet to arrive. The Guardian Prophet has entered the flying angel. Suddenly a gentle voice echoed through the hall as the ground itself began to tremble. They all noticed the floor at the hall's very front rising to form a stage. Come on. Peyton gestured at them to follow her. They all followed Peyton to sit at the very first row in front of the stage. No one in the hall uttered a word. Even a pin-dropping sound could be heard crystal clear. As they were waiting for the prophet, a heavy wind appeared in the hall out of nowhere. The howling sound of the wind slowly turned into a soul-soothing melody as an orb of light emerged above the stage. Gradually the light disappeared, revealing a wrinkly old woman in ragged clothes. Her white hair was messy just like her brown robes. One would not believe she's such an important person of the Guardian Guild, as she looked no different than a beggar. But none dared to utter any words in her presence. A few seconds after her appearance, everyone's brows slightly arched up. No matter how hard they tried to sense her cultivation level, they were unable to see it. The old woman stared at the people sitting in front of her before raising her hand. Noah heard Norvin grumble as he himself felt a sharp pain in his hand. He looked at the place that was hurting to see blood flowing out of a cut from his right hand. The wound looked like someone cut him with a sharp blade. Every single one of them had the same cut on their hands. It was obvious the old woman was the one who cut them. They wondered why. The blood spilled from their hands flew above the old woman, forming a blood orb. Slowly the blood orb descended on the old woman's head. Many thought the blood would drench the old woman, but the blood was completely absorbed through the messy hair into her head. H. The moment the blood orb disappeared, the old woman screeched like a canary. Her cry made many guardians close their ears. Stay still. Just when some of the guardians tried to run towards the old woman, the same voice that announced the prophet's arrival appeared again. This time, the voice didn't sound as gentle as before. Followed by the old woman's screech, her pupils slowly moved back into her skull. In a couple of seconds, her eyes completely turned white. The Dark Lord has found his path. She spoke in such a horrific manner. Her voice was neither of a woman nor a human. The voice was so unearthly, nothing like Noah or anyone in the hall ever heard before. The Guardians failed to kill the Dark Lord when he was just wandering without any powers of the Dark Lord. Soon he's going to get a power that will rival the powers of the gods themselves. His powers will begin to manifest. The whole building trembled as she spoke. The bright hall slowly started to grow darker and darker. Search and destroy the evil powers scattered around the world guardians. Every time the Dark Lord obtained one of these, his powers will grow by leaps and bounds. Her voice grew more and more animalistic. Accept your destiny and you'll be able to stop the Dark Lord. Lightbringer. Noah felt something happening inside him. He never experienced such a warm feeling. Although the old woman's words were common for everyone, he felt like they were directed at him. The light within you is much less powerful than the darkness inside the Dark Lord. You must find a way to kindle the light within you. Only then, you'll match the Dark Lord's power. Until now, Michael never received any powers that solely belonged to his future self, the Dark Lord. But the old woman's visions showed her the glimpse of the powers he's going to achieve soon. When the old woman's eyes turned normal, breathed heavily. You must stop him, she said in a normal voice, but it was filled with fear. The few glimpses of the Dark Lord's powers were enough to shake the old woman to the core. Her bloodline was guiding the Guardians ever since the guild was found, and the most powerful foe she faced was the necromancer. Zullo, but Zullo's total power could not hold a torch to the few glimpses of the power she saw from the Dark Lord. She believed the words that came out of her mouth were not hers, but they belonged to the gods. But she never knew that the Dark Lord himself is a god in the making. Who is the Lightbringer? Can he really stop the Dark Lord? These were some of the questions that emerged in her mind. When she was disappearing into the light once again, she put aside all the doubts in her mind. To defeat evil, they had to believe in themselves. While teleporting herself away from the flying angel to her cave, she closed her eyes, concentrating on the blurred vision she saw before. The vision that freaked her out the most. Even after the gods left her body, that image alone stuck in her mind. It was extremely difficult for her to see the visions again, but she tried. She tried her hardest to make some sense out of those images. She tried till her nose bled. 3 heads, a shadow of 3 heads in a storm cloud above the sea was the last thing she saw before losing consciousness. Chapter 249. The team cut through the thick veins and branches towards the river. The canopy was already thick enough, but coupled with the dark clouds in the sky, they barely had enough light to see what's in front of them. I should have brewed the cat's eye potion, Michael reminded himself. His face had many tiny red spots courtesy of the mosquitoes in the forest. The whining sound of these blood-sucking insects proved to be more challenging than the annoying undead monkeys. Thud. Michael suddenly heard a thud sound like something heavy hitting the ground. He paid close attention to the front to see Jesse, the thief, lying on the ground. Hey, you alright? Brownie reached his hand out to help Jesse. Yeah, got stuck in a vein. He quickly got up with the help of Brownie. Stumbling and falling in a place like this was nothing out of the ordinary, therefore they continued to walk forward as nothing happened. Yet Michael's brows creased. Weird Logan, who was walking beside him, was busy slapping the mosquitoes to pay attention to Michael's look on his face. Critch. Stop! Michael's face muscles tightened as he ordered them to stop. Did you hear that? Critch. Formation, Ross whispered as the fighters in the group such as Michael, Logan, H, and Marcella surrounded the weak to protect them. They stood still instead of moving. Critch. This time they heard the sound of twigs breaking more clearly. Michael felt like he was inside the Predator movie. The forest in the movie was not nearly as thick as this one. Everyone looked at their surroundings. All they could see was vegetation, nothing more. Critch. Critch. It was clearly the sound of something big stepping on the twigs. Marcella slowly raised her crossbow higher in the direction of the sound. They prepared themselves for another battle. Michael could tell something is about to jump out from the darkness. Doodum doodum dum dum. He played horror music inside his head for fun. Please be something big and less fast. The team would lose their mind if they heard Michael's wish. The Doombringer in his hand was not suitable to kill something that tiny and agile as the undead monkeys without using the lightning dash. If something emerged from the darkness big and slow, he would have an easier time killing it. Fuck, Marcella cursed as her eyes went wide in shock. The others swallowed, mouths full of saliva, looking at the creature standing on top of a branch. Finally, Michael turned his head and realized his wish had come true. The creature that was standing on the branch was an undead black panther. No one dared to close their noses despite the stench coming from the panther. The panther's skin wasn't coming off of its body as it was with the monkeys. It was evident that this panther has been turned into an undead recently, or even a couple of hours ago. If it wasn't for the stench and the lack of pupils, they wouldn't have assumed the panther to be an undead. Unlike those monkeys, it didn't mindlessly leap at them to attack, but jumped from branch to branch as it was studying their strengths and weaknesses. "What's it doing?" Logan whispered. "Don't make any sudden movements," Ross whispered while holding his silver scimitar tightly. He also moved closer to Maria so he could protect her when the panther starts to attack them. "Let's back away slowly," H whispered before slowly taking one step at a time. Growling. The panther growled as their bodies went stiff. Thud. Finally, the panther leaped down to the ground from the tree branch. Looking at the team, the panther bore its teeth menacingly. "Come on, kitty kitty." Michael raised his Doombringer as the panther scratched the ground with its paws. Growling. Suddenly the panther leaped at them. Its drool splattered across the ground, permeating even more stench. Due to the lack of pupils, they were unable to guess its target. It looked like it was targeting Michael, but just when he was about to attack, the panther changed its target to Logan. Michael swung his Doombringer, but he missed it by an inch. The Doombringer brushed past the panther's head while it lunged at Logan. Fortunately, Logan had a quick reflex as he raised his sledgehammer to prevent the panther from taking a bit out of his neck. "I don't have a clear shot," Marcella shouted, trying to get a good shot at the panther. Logan and the panther rolled on the ground. The panther was trying to bite him while Logan was trying to push away the big cat on him. "Don't move," Michael yelled at Logan. He held the sledgehammer that stuck between the panther's jaw even tighter. Boom. This time Michael didn't miss. His Doombringer's blunt head struck the panther's rib cage. The panther went flying away from Logan. It then hit a large tree before falling down. The tree the panther hit trembled due to the force. Whoosh. 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 Marcella used the opportunity to shoot bolt after bolt at the panther. Although every single bolt hit the panther, none could penetrate the thick skull of the panther. Growling. The panther growled again. The Doombringer caved in the panther's ribcage. When it stood up, black fluid started to ooze out of the wound, yet it didn't slow down the panther's movements. With a forceful push to the ground, the panther leaped into the air. Everyone raised their weapons to defend themselves when they saw Michael also leaping higher into the air. Their jaws almost dropped to the ground in shock. Even Ross' eyes went wide. What the fuck? Logan's eyes looked like they were about to pop out from the sockets. His mind couldn't figure out how David could jump so high with that heavy weapon in his hand. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 700 badass points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 1000 badass points. Boom. In the midair, Michael and the panther clashed. Michael swung the Doombringer with all his strength. The Doombringer struck the panther's back, but it wasn't without a cost. Before the attack could sink in, the panther headbutted Michael in the chest. Everything happened so quickly, the team only saw the panther hitting the ground after getting struck by Doombringer, and Michael flying into a tree before hitting the ground. Shit. Logan wanted to help David, but in a blink of an eye, the panther stood up with its spine sticking out of its back. It lunged at them. Fortunately, it was not as fast as before because of the broken spine. The APD quickly injected a healing potion into Michael's bloodstream, healing the wounds as well as easing his pain. Even after he was completely healed, he didn't stand up to join the fight. If he did otherwise, they would definitely suspect him more, as a normal human being would not be able to stand up after taking such a blow. Jumping into the air was already pushing his luck, but the 4000 badass points were worth the risk. While lying on the ground pretending to be injured, he stared at the fight happening a couple of meters away from him. The more he watched the fight, the more he realized the threat within the team. On the other side, Logan was swinging his sledgehammer, while Marcella fired bolt after bolt at the panther. After seeing the endurance and the strength of its body, The others backed off from the fight, leaving Marcella and Logan to deal with the panther. If any of them tried to attack the panther with a sword, they knew they would be killed in a second. Experienced fighters such as H and Ross took an occasional slash at the panther. Their experience was evident to Michael. The two guys slashed at the muscles joints connecting limbs, further slowing down the panther. The more time went by, the worse the panther looked. Countless bolts sticking out of its body, and the black fluid was oozing out of the wounds. Since the panther's speed significantly slowed down thanks to Ross and H, Logan was able to land heavy hits on the panther. Michael noticed Logan letting out a battle cry. His muscles flexed out, each muscle had perfect definition, especially his biceps that were bigger than many people's thighs. Finally something interesting, Michael mumbled. He fixed his eyes on Logan, who's fighting more and more violently. It seemed like he entered a berserker mode. Thud, 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 thud. The panther was getting pounded by Logan left and right. No matter how much black ooze spattered on his body, Logan did not slow down. He kept beating the black panther all over its body. Hit its head, idiot, Michael rolled his eyes. If Logan had landed those hits on the panther's head, its head would have split open by now, ending the fight. He wanted to rest until they finally killed the panther, but he had to intervene before the team got slaughtered by the new threat that only Michael knew about. Go for its head. Marcella screamed at Logan, looking at the panther's vulnerable state. Cut off its limbs. Ross shouted at H before dashing towards the panther. The two experienced fighters in the team worked together to cut its limbs. While Logan was going berserk on the paw nether, they slashed at its limbs as strong as they could. Growling, the panther growled when Ross and H cut off the forelimbs. The two of them pushed their limit to move fast and cut off its limbs. Logan roared loudly before bringing down the sledgehammer onto the panther's head. The moment the sledgehammer collided with the panther's head, it cracked open the head like a coconut. The brain matter exploded into a black mist. Finally, the team was able to heave a sigh of relief looking at the panther stops moving. Chapter 250. Gradually Logan's flexed muscles went back into his body. He was breathing heavily when he saw David standing up. Apart from a few splashes of red blood and black goo on his robes, he looked perfectly thin in Logan's eyes. The same couldn't be said to Logan himself, as he wanted to stop fighting the urge to faint. Logan bent down, clenching his knees to support his body from falling down. The rest of the team was too spent to gawk at Michael in surprise. Keep your shit together, big guy. We have one more thing to take care of. Michael gave a short pat on Logan's shoulder before walking towards the rest of the group. On his way, Michael picked up a crossbow bolt from the ground. They all wondered, what's he doing, Bam? Their bodies again tensed up when they saw Michael lift Jesse by his neck and slam him against a tree. The tree trembled as leaves and twigs blasted away by the force. Marcella immediately raised her crossbow at Michael, while the others also had serious looks on their faces. What the hell are you doing? H shouted. Instead of answering, Michael just stared at the masked face of Jesse for a few moments. What? Jesse tried to speak, but words barely escaped through against Michael's clutch. Did anyone notice that the Black Panther never targeted Jesse or attacked him? They were all confused by Michael's question. In the heat of the battle, they never noticed anything weird. He stayed out of its target range, so what? Marcella growled, refusing to let Michael manhandle Jesse like this. She knew and trusted Jesse more than Michael, giving no answer to Marcella. He just ripped off Jesse's cloth covering his arm. The moment H and everyone saw Jesse's right forearm, they took a step back from him. Marcella's eyes went wide as her body jerked in shock. Jesse's forearm had a 2-inch diameter circle bite mark. The area around the mark was riddled with yellow and blue veins. It's nothing, Jesse mumbled. He was already infected when the battle started. That was why the panther never targeted him. That was why he was stumbling on the way. The first thing that raised the suspicion on Jesse was when he stumbled down. If Jesse was here, it was obvious he's an expert thief. Otherwise, Ross or H wouldn't have hired him. A single misstep would cost a thief's life, hence they trained themselves to take each step with utmost care no matter where they are. For an expert thief like Jesse, falling down clumsily was pretty unusual. The next thing was when the team fought the panther. Although it focused its attacks on him, Logan, and Marcella, It never seemed to target Jesse. Besides, he also kept scratching his forearm instead of throwing the throwing knives hidden inside his cloak. How long? H asked, gently patting Michael's hand, wordlessly telling him to loosen his grip. Michael did loosen his grip but didn't let go. Grhh, only a menacing growl came out of Jesse's mouth. Jonah cautiously stepped towards Jesse, adjusting his glasses to examine the wound. Judging by the color around the wound, I'd say 3 hours. That's approximately the time we faced the undead monkeys, said Brownie. Thinking weak undead such as the monkeys managed to bite Jesse, he just shook his head in disappointment. If my guess is right, he will turn undead in 1 hour, he stuttered in fear. The reality of someone he knew will be undead in a matter of time freaked him out. Whatever he's here for, we have to do it without him. Michael's face was calm. There was no shock or fear on his face despite holding a soon-to-be undead in his hand. He spoke looking at H and Ross since this was their operation, and only they knew the real reason to bring a thief to this island. H just nodded, without stating the obvious. Sorry dude, any last words? Grara. Suit yourself, Pulch. Michael stabbed the crossbow bolt he was holding in the other hand through right between Jesse's eyes, killing him quickly and painlessly. Check yourselves, I'd hate for you to turn into an undead, H said, quickly hiding his concern from showing on his face. With the system on his side, Michael couldn't care less about losing a thief. It was indeed a pity for the team to lose one, but at the end of the day, it was expected. You cannot leave him like that, Maria protested against leaving Jesse's body. We don't have time to give him a proper burial. Ross sighed, but the others showed no concern for Jesse's body. After all, Jesse died and it was just the mortal shell. It's the least we can do for him. Undead or not, he was a human being. Let's move. H ignored the protest of this naive young girl. Michael followed H behind. Although he trusted Gaia to find and stop the other team from reaching the center, he still didn't want to waste any time doing chores for this stupid girl. If you don't, I will. The girl stomped the ground. She looked extremely stubborn as she began to walk towards Jesse's body. The team stared at Ross while H clenched his teeth in frustration. Not only H, but Michael also looked pissed. Unlike the rest of them, he needed to find the artifact the most. It was his real mission, not escorting them safely. Ever since they started the mission, Maria had been nothing but trouble. If she wasn't Ross' daughter, they would have personally kicked her off the ship. It's not a good idea to stay here any longer. The corpses might attract predators or even undeads. Jonah, the expert on undeads, warned them. He was already gawking around to see if there's any more undead creatures approaching them. Ross, H looked at Ross to knock some sense into his daughter. Maria, we're leaving. Ross tried to stop her but she just swatted his hand before he could stop her. I said I will give him a proper burial he deserves. You kidding me? We have to go before anyone else ends up like him. Finally Marcella said something that Michael approved of. This is not the time for stubbornness, Maria, Ross spoke in a grave voice. This is exactly the right time. How could you leave him like this, like he was some kind of animal? Would you leave if it was me? After this, the father and daughter began to argue. Michael was already annoyed at these two for delaying the mission. He paid no attention to the argument. All his attention was on his surroundings, but he could hear the argument heating up. While everyone's focus was on the father-daughter duo, he slipped behind a tree for cover. Fly, my little bird, he gently tossed the palm-sized drone into the air. The white drone transformed its surface into an army camouflage to blend with the forest. However, before the drone could fly deeper into the forest, he controlled it to fly around them, making a rustling noise. Something's coming. Michael quickly stepped out from the darkness of the tree. H shouted at the team as he had nothing to do with the noise. Zzzzhhhhhhhh. The noise immediately stopped the arguing. We're moving. This time everyone followed H, leaving Ross and Maria behind. They didn't think Ross would be dumb enough to stick around, burying Jesse. Digging a grave for Jesse at this moment was equal to digging 2 more graves for him and his daughter. You're coming with me. Ross grabbed Maria by her hand and started moving. She was still stupid enough to struggle, but this time, she couldn't escape Ross' hold. Michael followed them behind while the drone kept making noises by flying around them. Looking at the speed they were running, he wished he used the drone earlier, which would have saved them some time. They continued to run as fast as they could. Even after a couple of hours, they never dared to stop. Eventually, after running for so long, Michael heard the sound of water flowing. "The river is closer," H reminded them. "Human, we have a problem." Suddenly he heard Gaia's voice. What she said slowed his pace of running. "What is it?" he whispered. "It wasn't one team hunting for the artifact, it's two. One group was already dead when I tracked them down." "Where?" The thickness of the trees suddenly declined as they stepped out of the forest to see a beautiful river. "Near a river on the south," Gaia answered, but he already knew the answer. The shore was filled with almost 20 bodies. Their blood painted the golden sandy shore red. What happened here? The sunlight entered in abundance due to the lack of canopy above them. It reflected on the dead bodies and the broken ship parts floating on the river. The team cautiously took steps forward towards the dead bodies. Everyone was on their guard. He wished he sent 3 more drones so one would have surveyed this direction. The drone he sent unfortunately covered the forest quite some distance from this place. After slowly approaching the site, they came to the first dead body on the shore. It was of a middle-aged man. He wore a toga just like the 2 Southerners Michael met on Lars' ship. He wondered what a nobleman was doing in a dangerous place like this. Michael squatted down beside the dead body to study the wounds inflicted on the body. Gaia was right. He wasn't killed by an undead but a human. Looking at the clean cut across his throat, he could tell it was the handiwork of a human. No undead would kill with such precision, or leave the body untouched. They were killed by humans. Marcella came to the same conclusion as Michael. Chapter 251 Ross, you need to see this. A few meters away from Michael, Marcella called out for Ross. Underneath her feet, there was a body of a blue-robed youngster. Marcella's face had an unusual frown. Ross causality walked towards Marcella, while constantly staring at the surroundings for any surprise attack. Michael closely stared at Ross' face for any expression. Just when he got close to Marcella, dark lines appeared on his forehead. "It's Rowan." From the distance, Michael's lip read Ross. Soon he saw the others walking towards Marcella, and having the same disturbed looks on their faces as Ross. "It must be his team then," said Logan, his eyes squinting at the broken ship parts floating on the river. One by one, the team members began to look gloomy. Even with the ship, reaching the center would be a pain. "What are we gonna do now?" Brownie's voice already showed his reluctance to continue the mission. "Then we go with the plan B, go through the forest." H immediately opened his mouth before anyone could ask Ross to back off from the mission. It seemed to Michael that H was more desperate to complete the mission than Ross himself. "It's suicide." Ross, however, shook his head. They could reach the center through the forest far more quickly than traveling on the river. But it was the powerful undead army living in the forest that made them go with the river. "I agree with Ross. A single panther almost killed us and the deep forest will have hundreds of them." Except for Jonah and H. Everyone nodded their heads. Michael, on the other hand, although he knew going into the forest might even threaten his life, he wasn't going to abandon the mission like the rest of them. The host should build a raft. "Long time no hear, system." Despite him sitting in the middle of dead bodies, the system's voice put a smile on his face. "I was already thinking that," he thought, looking at the wooden planks, bamboo trees in the forest as well as the ropes around the area. The team who killed Rowan's team was thorough. They not only killed them all but also destroyed the ship they built. Building a ship from scratch was far beyond what Michael could do at his current inventor trait. Even if he had the required level, he needed a blacksmith to complete the ship. Therefore, the best thing he could do was a raft, using the materials around him. While making a blueprint to build the raft in his mind, he controlled the drone to fly ahead, following the river. Shit! His mind played him the visuals being captured by the drone. The foxy smile from his face vanished instantly. It was replaced by a stern look. Crocodiles, undead, and alive crocodiles. He could count at least 50 full-grown crocodiles swarming the river ahead of them. What made him sweat a cold drop was some of the undead crocodiles were swimming against the river's current. In other words, they were coming towards them. "Guys, we can build a raft," Michael almost shouted. He had no time to waste anymore. The other team hunting for the artifact was rushing enough. And now he had to deal with these crocs. Using arch energy to fight them might seem like a solution, but he had a feeling the stronger foes are at the temple where the artifact is. Besides, building 2 rafts would not take much time considering his inventor skills. All of their gazes instantly turned towards Michael. Of course, doubt and disbelief of what he just said were written all over their faces. We have all the necessary materials to build 2 of them. It won't be as comfy as a ship, but it will take us to the center. That of course, if you still want to get the job done. You think you can build them? Jonah's voice contained a doubt, yet also a glimmer of hope, just like those brown eyes behind his glasses. If you guys quit skulking around and help me, I can get the rafts on the water in an hour. Yet again, Michael peeked at the corner of his mind to see the crocs. They're the deadliest predators in the world for a reason. Michael couldn't help praising the crocodiles after seeing their speed. The river's current was pretty strong, yet they moved so fast and swiftly against the current. We're in too deep to back off, Ross. I won't turn my back on Johnny. H and Maria tried to convince Ross to move forward with the mission as Michael expected. If it wasn't for the fact that the flying time to the center is almost 4 hours, he might have shown his true face. To save the precious 3 hours of cultivation power, Michael decided to stick with them. The more people he surrounds himself with, the less chance he would end up undead. Chow. David, what do you need from us? After taking a few long moments, Ross finally asked Michael. Anyone with 2 eyes or 1 eye could tell how reluctant Ross is. No one knew what's at stake other than Ross himself. Getting the artifact was the only way to save Giselle Kingdom's lead senator, who's the one holding the kingdom together. If he died, the whole kingdom would be thrown into chaos. The enemy kingdoms would wage war to take a piece of Giselle. Thousands of people would die while many would become slaves. The desperation to save his motherland forced Ross to go with this suicide plan. Maria Peely. Not gonna happen, father. Yet again Maria stomped the ground, refusing to listen to Ross. She's stupid and stubborn as fuck. Her stubbornness truly surprised Michael. He had never seen such a stubborn and stupid girl before in his 2 lives. After looking at the number of crocodiles rushing towards them, it wouldn't surprise Michael if half the team lost their lives. Since Logan could prove to be a good subordinate, he might save him if the push comes to shove. The rafts won't protect us as a ship would. This is a suicide plan. We should go back. Marcella sounded extremely serious. Michael clenched his jaws as black lines appeared on his forehead. Go back and get nothing, or follow me and get thrice the payment you've agreed. The moment H uttered these words, many in the team let out a surprising burst of chuckle. Their frowny faces showed a slight smile. A greedy smile except for Marcella. Even Marcella rubbed her chin, thinking about the coins. Logan's reaction was obvious as his eyes sparkled. Although Michael smiled to pretend like he was intrigued by H's offer, somewhat he couldn't completely believe H's words. You sly fox, you don't believe everyone will survive, Michael snickered inside. He didn't loathe or get mad at H though. It was a logical move considering the risk of moving forward. If most of them died, H wouldn't have to pay them. What made Michael wonder was whether H would double-cross the survivors or not. I don't know about you guys, but the payday is worth the risk. Following H. Logan was the first to step towards Michael to help. While Ross was trying to convince Maria to back off, the others agreed with H one by one. What you need me to do? Logan asked. Get me as many bamboos as you can. Logan picked up a scimitar from one of the dead bodies before going into the forest. What about us? Brownie asked while Marcella and Jonah stood behind him. H was discussing something with Ross. Maria surprised Michael by digging graves for the dead bodies. Get the wooden planks floating on the river. Do it fast. Who knows what lingers around this forest? Michael started to collect things such as ropes to start building the rafts. After almost 50 minutes of hard work, Michael finally finished building the 2 rafts. It's not a ship, but they will get the job done. The 2 bamboo rafts didn't exactly look like a typical raft. Each raft contained 3 layers of green bamboo. Michael also tied wooden barrels with the raft to make them float better. Since he knew about the upcoming threat, he used the wooden planks as the walls to somewhat provide protection against the crocs. In simple words, each one was a raft with 3 walls. He knew the walls would be destroyed by the crocs in a few moments after meeting them, but those few moments could save a life. He knew that the more people he had to fight the undead, the better his chance to obtain the artifact. H. Logan, Jonah, Marcella on one raft. The rest of us will get on the other 1 inch. This meant Michael, Ross, Maria, and Brownie would be on the same raft. He kinda wished Logan to be on the same raft as he is, but he doubted the raft could take the big guy and his sledgehammer along with him and the Doombringer. "I'll go first." Michael walked towards the raft floating behind HS raft. Who? When he jumped on the raft, it wobbled for a moment until he balanced himself. They're close. When he peeked at the visuals being captured by the drone, he noticed the Crocs getting closer and closer. Although he still looked calm, he was pretty serious about the upcoming battle. Soon, one by one, the team jumped onto the raft. Sigh, only after he saw everyone standing on the rafts without drowning in the river, he breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 252. Traveling on the raft against a calm wind seemed peaceful, almost making them forget where they were. H used the long bamboo stick as a paddle to move the raft faster, while on Michael's raft, Brownie used the bamboo paddle. "You seem tense," Maria said, looking at Michael. He was surprised to see this stubborn, stupid girl noticing his inner emotions. "Is it weird considering where we are going?" He shrugged. He could have smiled, yet he showed no expression on his face. After getting a question as an answer, Maria frowned before sitting on the raft to relax her muscles. At the moment, Michael was standing behind the raft, in front of the back wall made of wooden planks. Except for Maria, no one turned back to notice what he was doing. He chose this place so he could concentrate on controlling the drone, which would let him know the whereabouts of the Crocs. While Michael was looking at the footage being captured by the drone, out of nowhere an arrow shot straight at the drone. The drone flew chaotically above the river before finally falling into the water. But before it went down, Michael saw a humanoid figure on a boulder near the river. "Is that an alpha?" His brows furrowed. This was another difference he found in the netherals of the southern continent. Back in the northern continent, a netheral bite wouldn't turn a cultivator into a netheral. It was the exact opposite here. It was obviously the lack of arch energy in the people's bodies here. If Jesse was a cultivator and had arch energy running through his energy veins, he wouldn't have turned into a netheral or undead. As he learned recently, the alphas were stronger and intelligent undeads who possessed intellectual equal to a human. In other words, alphas were perfect killing machines. After the alpha undead shot down his drone, he had no way of knowing the Crocs' whereabouts or how far the undeads from their current position were. Michael put the Doombringer on his shoulder, preparing himself for the upcoming battle. "Guys, I feel like something's heading in our way. You might want to put your guard up," Michael warned everyone on the raft. For a few moments, Ross gawked at him doubtfully, but ultimately Ross nodded. For a few more minutes, he heard only the sound of the river's flow, the birds chirping as well as the creaking noises produced by the rafts. It was until he started to hear the ear-piercing scream, which was followed by growling noises of countless undeads. "Watch out!" Logan shouted from his raft. Michael peeked through the wall's holes to see either side of the river is getting swarmed by humanoid undeads and undead beasts. Gra! Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Move, move, move. H shouted as the first raft began to move faster. The undead standing on the shore swarmed into the river, hoping to catch them mindlessly only to get stormed by the river current. Many beast undeads drowned instantly. Fuck crocodiles. Yet again Logan warned them with a shout, but Michael and everyone on his raft could see the army of crocodiles swimming towards them with their jaws wide open. There's no way the host could get past those crocs without using your cultivation powers. Even the system couldn't stay silent looking at the crocs swarming the river ahead of them. He could use wind blast to blast the crocs away. Given the current situation, it seemed to be the only logical move. It would be nearly impossible for these rafts to go through the crocs. Probably while they were stuck with the crocs, the alpha might pick them off one by one with his bow. Whoosh. Brownie. Just when he was thinking about the alpha, an arrow went straight through Brownie's head. The blood spattered on Ross' face, who was standing relatively close to Brownie. Michael saw Brownie's lifeless body falling into the river. The arrow that killed Brown was extremely fast. In a blink of an eye, it took Brownie's life. Brownie didn't even see the arrow that took his life. He was completely clueless. Get down. Ross shouted as they all ducked down. Through the hole in the wall, Michael noticed a 6 feet humanoid figure standing on a boulder with a bow in his hand. There was no skin below his neck while half of the skin had fallen off of his face. The messy patches of gray hair fluttered in the wind behind the figure. His horrifying figure sent a chill running through everyone's spines. An alpha undead. He heard Marcellus shout. Without Brownie paddling, the raft started to propel violently. Hang on. Ross cautiously crawled towards the paddle. Fortunately, Marcella was able to fire a couple of bolts. Her bolts made the alpha undead retrieve from the boulder to seek cover. However, none couldn't breathe a sigh of relief. The crocs were still coming on their way. Fuck it. Realizing there was no way of getting through them without the help of arch energy, Michael stood up to wind blast the crocs. Need some help? Suddenly he heard the sweet melodious voice of Gaia in his ear. He had no idea what she's doing here without tracking down the other team. Still, he was glad that she's here to help them. It was still too early to reveal the fact that he could use arch energy. Oh my god! Watch out! What is that? Everyone began to shout crazily, staring at the sky. He looked up at the sky to see a huge boulder flying towards the crocodiles. Boom! The boulder hit the crocs with tremendous force, crushing many crocs while the shock wave blasted the remaining crocs away. Looking at the shock wave coming in their direction, Logan paddled the rift to avoid hitting the boulder, while Ross shouted at them to hold on to something. Hold on to something. Fortunately, both the rafts had sidewalls to prevent them from falling into the wall. Still, when Maria was thrown into the wall, the crash sent the wall flying away. Logan's raft wasn't in a good shape either. Since Logan's raft was the first to receive the shockwave's wrath, they lost all the walls. Without giving a thought to what just happened, both Logan and Ross paddled the raft away from the boulder in the river a couple of yards before them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The alpha undead rained down arrows while keeping up with their rafts. He was like an Olympic gold medalist runner on drugs merged with an Olympic archer. Despite the raft's speed, he was able to keep up with them. The remaining side wall was able to prevent the majority of the arrows from hitting Michael's raft, but the same couldn't be said to Logan's raft, which had no walls to protect them. If it wasn't for Marcella firing back to mess with the alpha's accuracy, they would have surely lost another teammate, most probably Logan, since he was literally a huge target. Stop the alpha, Michael said to Gaia through the earpiece before the alpha could get lucky and kill one of them. Even Michael remained behind the wall, because of the alpha undead's precision. He headshot Brownie, who was on a moving raft. Piece of cake, as usual, she sounded confident. He was glad she's here. Otherwise, he would have been forced to reveal his secret. Until he could see the artifact, he didn't want the others to know that he can use arch energy. Besides, he wanted to see what H or Ross planned to do when they finally reached the artifact. It was possible that either of them still holds an ace up their sleeves. Right at the moment, the alpha knocked up an arrow to fire, but before he could do that, another arrow came from the forest behind him. Michael saw the alpha turning his head, sensing Gaia's presence, but it was too late as the arrow went straight through the alpha's head. Just like Michael, everyone else, the others who saw the scene, were bewildered. First, a boulder came out of nowhere, and now the alpha was killed by someone. The sudden change of events confused them. Who killed it? Someone's in the forest. Ross came to the correct conclusion, yet he had no idea who was in the forest helping them. Plus, no matter how hard he thought, he couldn't find an answer to the question. How or what could have thrown the boulder with such force? Everyone except Michael was thinking the same thing. Even the alpha's death couldn't stop the dumb netherals from rushing into the river. Unlike the alpha, they had no brain function whatsoever. Hence they ended up either drowning immediately or flooded by the river. They were not a threat, not at all. If they had the ship built by Rowan's team, or it wasn't for the alpha and the crocodiles, this journey would have been a peaceful one and Brownie would have been still alive. He was a valuable team member, as well as a great fighter. They needed all the fighters they could. Now they only had Logan, H, Ross, Michael, and Marcella to face an army of undeads guarding the temple. There are still some alphas heading your way. Let me take care of them, Gaia said. Chapter 253. The rest of the journey was peaceful thanks to Gaia killing the alphas before they could attack the rafts. Judging by the frown on Ross' face, Michael could tell that doubts are rising in Ross' heart. How long? Michael asked Ross. He held the paddle bamboo in one hand and the map in the other. For a few moments, He just studied the surroundings. If everything goes smooth, we'll reach the center in 3 hours as far as he remembered. The river was running through the island's center, which meant they could reach the artifact sooner than later. The sooner he gets the artifact, the sooner he could return to dominate the southern continent, as well as meet his new demon subordinate. Are you hearing that? Maria asked after everyone started to hear a faint humming noise. It was very faint, yet one could hear it if focused enough. Gradually HS raft moved towards the shore as Ross paddled the raft to follow them to the shore. It's good to be on the land. Logan let out a heavy sigh of relief. Even Michael felt relieved to step out of the raft. Follow my lead. Ross took the lead into the dark forest. The forest looked ancient with giant trees and lush vegetation on the ground. Apart from the faint humming noise, only the croaking of the frogs, the gurgling croak of ravens as well as trees rustling could be heard. The air reeks. Logan twitched his nose. He was right, the air did reek of rotten flesh. Keep your guards up. It was not like they dropped their guards, yet they focused more on the surroundings after hearing Ross. Every single one of them took the next step with utmost caution. Even H, who seemed to be in the rush to get the artifact, walked slower. The lush forest made following Ross difficult. In the distance, they could hear the thunderclaps. Pushing the foliage away, Michael and Logan followed the team behind. Without uttering a single word, they kept walking. They kept walking as the faint humming noise began to sound louder and louder. Michael used his environmental scanning senses to scan for any undeads, yet he found nothing. It was surprisingly unusual. Although there were no undeads nearby, he couldn't shake the eerie feeling. Except for the humming noise, there was no sound, not even a chirp of a bird. After an hour of walking, the thick forest seemed to decline. They could see the light coming through the forest a few hundred meters ahead of them. I'm getting closer. Michael's instincts told him that the artifact is nearby. He could vaguely feel a tremendous amount of energy coming from ahead of him. When they finally stepped out of the thick forest, they were welcomed by a huge surprise. Holy fuck! Logan's jaws dropped, just like the rest of them. What they saw was a pyramid, a miniature-sized pyramid surrounded by an army of undeads and trees. It was at least 50 feet tall and 30 feet wide. Instead of sandstones, this pyramid was built using a grayish stone that gave the pyramid a dark look. What is this place? Logan asked as his eyes widened in shock. The question should be, how do we reach the inside? Still, HS' focus was on the artifact, not on the pyramid. He had the least surprised look on his face. Even Michael was stunned by this wonder, but not H. The system is sensing strong first energy fluctuations. First energy? Do you think I can use it through Energy Devourer? Since your body and soul endured the first energy before, you'll be able to use the first energy with no problem. Awesome, his face brightened. When he first sucked in the first energy, he was able to get from the body strengthening stage to the core formation stage in one go. Luckily, he was again presented with the first energy source. What is this artifact? He wondered. The artifact never ceased to amaze him. Look over there, Jonah pointed at the other side of the pyramid as they vaguely saw a rope bridge connecting to the pyramid's top from the cliff on the other side. If they walked carefully through the edge, they could reach the other side without alerting the undeads. Hey, is it me or do these undeads look weird? Logan looked down on the undeads from the cliff. They are hibernating, Jonah said, lifting his glasses up. Michael heard about this phenomenon from Dalar. It was like when the Netherals had nothing to attack in the vicinity. They would enter into a state that could be compared to humans sleeping. Until they could sense prey, they would remain in this state. Hibernating? What does that mean? Logan scratched the back of his head. You can think of it as an undead version of sleeping. H quickly interfered before Jonah could start a lecture about undeads. Carefully looking at the undeads beneath them, they began to move towards the other side. The rope bridge looked ancient, missing many wooden steps, yet it was their best hope to reach the pyramid. Human, have you reached the rope bridge yet? Yet again he heard Gaia's voice. Oh, cover your backs. Michael let Logan and the team go first so he could talk to Gaia without them noticing. They didn't suspect him much as they had bigger things to worry about. While they were moving forward, he slowed down, putting some distance from them. Not yet, where are you? Keeping the other team from reaching the rope bridge. Since you've seen the army of undeads down there, You know what would happen if they smell blood in the air or any screams. Good call, we should not wake them up as long as we could, he whispered. How are you slowing them down? I may or may not have put some bloody flux into their meals. Her voice contained a sliver of devilishness. So you keep a bloody flux potion with you, huh? Of course I do, and you better watch yourself, human. She chuckled before cutting the connection. The bloody flux was a potion that would cause diarrhea. The fact she had a bloody flux potion with her didn't surprise Michael very much. Anyways, he was glad that her potion was able to slow down the other team. If they were affected by the bloody flux potion, he knew their combat skills would hit low. And even if they did try to fight them, which was very unlikely considering the hibernating undeads, Michael's team would have an easy time dealing with them. While they were walking on the edge, every single one of them did their best not to kick any pebbles down at the undeads. It was evident that if they woke one undead up, the whole army would wake up. It took them half an hour to reach the cliff on the other side. Except for Michael, none of them knew that the other team was hiding in the forest behind them. They are coming. Michael sensed the other team moving towards them with the help of the environmental scanning. Their movements were slow, probably due to the bloody flux. In a few minutes, Michael's team heard a voice coming from the forest. They quickly unsheathed their weapons. Stop. One by one, the other team members walked out from the forest's darkness. They wore gray hooded robes covering every part of their body. Even their eyes were covered by a black transparent cloth. However, the one who walked out from the forest last didn't wear similar clothes. He just wore black armor protecting his torso and brown leather breeches with black boots. His short golden hair was messy and his face was pale. Johnny! The moment Maria saw the young man, she almost shouted. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Maria leaped at the young man, embracing him like there's no tomorrow. Maria, the young man hugged her back. I found you. Maria buried her head into his chest, ignoring her father's gaze. Michael noticed the black lines appearing on Ross' forehead. Johnny lifted her face slowly. Just when he was about to lock his lips with hers, Ross opened his mouth. What are you doing here? I could. Asked the same. Johnny sounded like he was too weak to speak. They all noticed this, but only Michael knew the reason. He also felt pity for these guys because it would have been damn hard for them to disrobe to let whatever inside them out. Did you kill them? Ross asked. His voice may not have shown the killing intent, but his eyes did. Kill who? Father, Maria tried to butt in, yet Ross' gaze was fixed on Mariah's boyfriend. Johnny creased his brows, looking confused. We didn't kill anyone. Johnny shook his head. It was them who killed Rowan's team, yet Johnny said otherwise. Michael knew either Johnny's lying, which was probably the case, or the cloaked figures killed them without Johnny's knowledge. It's obvious you reached this place before us, but what are you still doing here without going into the temple? H asked. A hint of anger and embarrassment emerged in Johnny's eyes. We encountered a setback, that's all you need to know. Now, are you going to keep interrogating me or work together to enter the temple? H stared at Johnny for a few moments before nodding at the team to lower their weapons. I have my eyes on you, kid, H said in a serious tone. Johnny did not react, but Maria gave H a death glare which H just ignored. After this temporary truce, all of their focus turned towards the rope bridge in front of them. Michael could feel the intense energy coming from the pyramid. Finally, this is coming an end. Chapter 254. H and Ross nodded at Johnny, wordlessly agreeing with him to stroll over the bridge without wasting any time. Michael walked over to the bridge to see the rope bridge's integrity. The bridge looked ancient, in which the deck of the bridge lied on two parallel load-bearing ropes that were anchored at either end. They had no towers or piers. Some of the wooden planks were missing while some looked rotten due to old age. If this was any other day, no one in the team would have agreed to walk this bridge, yet in this situation, they had to take the risk. Michael stood aside, deciding to let the others use the bridge first. He noticed Johnny giving a pat to his tummy before taking the steps towards the bridge. Follow me, Johnny ordered his men to follow him. Although Johnny didn't seem like a leader figure in Michael's eyes, the cloaked figures did follow him behind, only to get stopped by H. Stop. What now? Johnny turned with his brows creased. Coupled with the bloody flux's effects, H's constant interference annoyed Johnny. I'm not stupid to let your guys use the bridge first. Well, use the bridge one by one. Ross, you go next. After seeing the stern look on H's face, Johnny realized there's no point in arguing. Therefore, he just took his first step on the bridge. His first step caused the bridge to shake. Johnny quickly grabbed the 2 ropes on either side to balance himself, as well as stop the bridge from shaking. One slow step at a time, Johnny moved forward. Even the thunderclaps from the distance were able to slightly shake this ancient rope bridge. Since his stomach was hurt by the bloody flux, he kinda limped towards the pyramid. The rope bridge may have anchored at 2 ends, but the wooden planks were only laid until the pyramid's top. After the pyramid, there were no wooden planks, just ropes. The bridge was either built on a rush or by an amateur, everyone thought. When Johnny reached the pyramid's top, a bright light appeared, producing a weird sound. The light soon enveloped Johnny. In a blink of an eye, Johnny disappeared from the bridge. When Johnny disappeared, one would expect Maria to panic, but the one who panicked was none other than Michael himself. "I'll go next." Michael was already standing near the bridge. Hence, before Ross could make a move, he stepped on the bridge. He was supposed to go last, except they saw him cut in the line. Not only Ross but every single one of them was shocked. Yet they were unable to shout or do anything to stop him. "Careful," Logan almost shouted when he saw the bridge violently shake. The bridge looked like it could barely take on a walking passenger. But David was running on the ancient bridge. They were afraid of him collapsing the bridge, or worse, waking up the undead army below them. Michael completely ignored their fears. Kachak. The same blue light that enveloped Johnny appeared again to envelop Michael. The brightness made him close his eyes for a moment. The next moment, he felt light as a warmth feeling overwhelmed him. When he opened his eyes, he was standing in an empty hall. The walls and floor were made of some kind of dark navy blue stone. Everywhere he turned, he only saw blue walls, that was it. "Where's Ross?" Johnny asked, but Michael ignored him completely. "System, where's the artifact?" Scanning the area. The artifact is directly below the hall's center. Michael heaved a sigh of relief after hearing the system. At least he was sure of the artifact's existence. Now he only needed to find a way to bring the artifact to the upper ground, or find a way to go below. "Hey." Johnny got mad seeing the new guy completely ignore him. "Where is it?" Michael looked around, walking towards the center. He was searching for some kind of mechanism like in the games to activate something. "Welcome, Lord Lucifer." The moment he reached the center, the ground lit up. He was standing on a gigantic magical rune that started to rotate. Various magical symbols appeared from the thin air. They all floated around Michael. What's happening?" Johnny was staring at the ground as well as the floating symbols with a bewildered face. "Lucifer." Michael's jaw slightly dropped, recalling how the pyramid called him. It was a robotic voice, yet it sounded utmost respectful when it spoke his name. Is this place might be another safe hold of the Order of the Death? He questioned himself while staring at the rune below him. He waited for something to happen, completely ignoring Johnny or the cloaked figure who just appeared in the hall. Holy gods! Johnny saw the cloaked figure dropping to the ground, worshipping the flying symbols. After the cloaked figure appeared, someone from Ross' team or Ross himself was supposed to appear. Yet the one who entered the hall was another cloaked figure. "You idiots!" The moment the cloaked figure saw Michael standing on the runic circle, he shouted at Johnny and the one who was worshipping the glowing runes. Creak. Johnny was about to take a step forward when the entire hall trembled. Soon afterward, a long tube containing a pitch-black orb on top emerged from the ground before Michael. "Stop him!" Yet again the cloaked figure screamed as his voice was full of panic rather than anger. "Is this the artifact?" Michael felt an immense amount of pressure being radiated from the orb in front of him. The orb was neither too big nor too small. Rather, it was the size of any typical glass orbs used by oracles or fortune tellers. Energy devourer activated. Warning: too much first energy. Warning: host should immediately enter into a hibernation state. Energy devourer reactivated. Does the host wish to unlock the artifact? His mind was filled with warning sounds, yet it couldn't make Michael back off from getting the artifact. Yes, Johnny and the two cloaked figures tried to reach Michael, except an invisible force stopped them from doing so. "We cannot let him take that," the cloaked figure who previously worshipped the runes shouted. The other cloaked figure turned back to see Ross appear. Use it. Johnny saw the cloaked figure who appeared second taking out a red brick with silver wires coiled around it. Johnny immediately recognized it. The red brick was a powerful explosive used by the Church of Modin. Wait, Johnny tried to stop, but the cloaked figure was swift. He placed the brick as close as possible to Michael, fiddling with the wires coiled around the brick for a bit. Run! The cloaked figures screamed before running as fast as they could from the red brick. Since Johnny knew about the explosive brick, he too ran behind them to the hall's far corner. Fortunately, the light teleported everyone to the far corner, so Ross never had to run. Staring at the glowing runes and the trio running away, Ross had too many questions in his mind. The red brick began to vibrate while its surface emitted a cloud of black smoke. In a blink of an eye, the cloud of black smoke transformed into a red-hot flame. Boom! The red brick exploded with an immense amount of force. The explosion created a bright light that made everyone close their eyes. The entire hall trembled as stone pieces from the ceiling crumbled down on them. When they opened their eyes, they saw the glowing runes flicker before completely disappearing from the hall. The artifact! The two cloaked figures shouted in joy seeing the black orb rolling on the ground where Michael was standing a moment ago. The cloaked figures completely ignored the body lying on the ground a few meters away from the orb. It was Michael. He laid on the ground face down. Puffs of smoke kept emerging from his charred clothes as well as some of his body parts. Johnny Ross turned back and saw his daughter appear. Pulch! Pulch! While his gaze was on Maria, he heard a familiar sound appear from the other side. He would recognize this sound in his sleep, the sound of a blade piercing a body. He immediately turned back to see the two cloaked figures lying on the ground, blood gushing out from their back. Standing beside their bodies, Johnny picked up the orb on the ground. He held the orb in one hand while a bloody dagger in his other hand. It's mine. Ross saw an evil grin appear on Johnny's pale face. Although Ross had a bad feeling about Johnny, he never imagined him backstab two people in cold blood. When Johnny turned his murderous glance at Maria, a chill ran through Ross' spine. He quickly stepped in front of Maria, shielding her with his body. Considering Ross had little to no idea about Johnny's real combat ability or the artifact's power, he feared for his daughter's life. Stay back, Ross said in a grave voice. The last thing he wanted was his daughter to become collateral damage in the fight between him and Johnny. While he was shielding his daughter, H and the others appeared in the hall one by one. Seeing the three dead bodies, H immediately unsheathed his sword. Except for the remaining cloaked figures in the hall, everyone raised their weapon at Johnny. What happened here? Who killed them? Finally, one of the cloaked figures unsheathed his dagger. Because Johnny was standing so beside the dead bodies, they naturally suspected Johnny, and they were right. Chapter 255 is that. David? Logan stuttered, staring at the body a couple of meters away from Johnny. His muscles went rigid in shock. He never thought David would die while Jonah, who had no knack for the battle, is alive. What happened before they arrived here was still a mystery to Logan, but he was sure that Johnny or that two cloaked figures could have killed David unless they had used some crooked means. They tried to take what's mine, so I killed them, Johnny nonchalantly said while fiddling with the orb in his hand. He tried to figure out a way to activate the orb. You murderer! After hearing these words from Johnny, the cloaked figures lost their composure as they rushed at Johnny with no hesitation. At the same time they moved, Ross felt a gust of wind passing against his back. Pulch! 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 Everyone saw four heads rolling on the floor as the headless bodies walked around clumsily, spraying blood all over the place before falling to the ground. The beheadings happened so quickly. None of them clearly saw the killer during the killings. They realized who killed them only after the four heads left their bodies. Maria. This was the first time Logan saw the terrified face of Ross. When they saw the bloody spear and the blood-splattered white clothes of her terrified them, because they never imagined she possessed such a deadly side. Even her own father never had a clue about her real skills. Quit playing with it, Johnny, Maria ordered Johnny. Her usual sweet gentle voice was nowhere to be seen, as she sounded more like a battle-hardened villainess. On the contrary, Johnny's attitude took a 180 turn. He immediately knelt down, lowering his head to avoid eye contact with Maria. He held out the orb towards Maria like he was giving an offering to a goddess. The sudden change of events completely stunned everyone standing in the hall. "Maria," Ross called out to Maria, but his voice was suppressed by various emotions. "I'll deal with you all in a sec," she said, taking the orb from Johnny's hand. When she looked at Ross, he could no longer see the little girl he knew. The girl in front of him was a completely different person. There was no love or kindness in her eyes, just anger and killing intent. Ignoring Ross' call, she walked towards Michael, whose body was still smoking. The team stood there watching Maria giving a couple of kicks to David's dead body. "Pity, I wanted to kill you with my spear." After kicking Michael's body, she walked away from him. Johnny didn't stand up even after giving the orb. He just knelt down on the ground until she could tell him otherwise. Creak. She ripped off Johnny's shirt, yet there was no reaction from him at all. "Now I assume you all want an explanation." Maria didn't even look at Ross or anyone but began to clean the blood from the artifact using Johnny's shirt. She then put the orb in her satchel hanging on her waist. "You're all gonna die anyway, so it doesn't hurt to tell you." Ross, although the skills she displayed could make her on par with a highly trained Spartan or a gladiator, H still believed he could defeat her with the help of the team. He knew that Marcella attacked her from a distance, and he and Logan flanking her from either side would definitely lead the way to beat Maria. Johnny was a variable, but H believed Ross would take him down if push comes to shove. But first, even if Ross didn't want to fight with them, H wanted Ross to stay out of their way when they fought Maria. If he tried to protect his daughter again, this fight would get complicated or simply result in H's defeat. "I need to know what she has to tell." Ross slightly raised his hand, stopping H from doing anything. "It's simple actually. Giselle Kingdom took the one thing that meant everything to me. So I'm gonna destroy it and kill all those senator scumbags with this." She tapped the satchel. Her murderous grin showed them that she's very serious about this plan. "It was my fault," Maria said. Ross, his eyes were full of regret. "Anyone could tell he's telling the truth. That's why you're gonna die too. You always put your duties to the kingdom first. That was why you brought an undead to our home." Her murderous voice echoed through the empty halls. After they heard her, they gawked at Ross in disbelief. It was Ross' greatest regret. To the outside world, Ross' wife died of an unknown disease, except she wasn't. It was Ross who killed her after the undead he brought home bit her. In the southern continent, it was strictly forbidden for any kingdom to bring undeads to the mainland from the undead island. All the senates and a few kings in the continent took the decisions together. Nonetheless, 5 years ago, the Senate and the scholars of Giselle conducted a secret operation to bring an undead from the island for experiments. After leading the mission with Marcella, Ross caught an undead alive. Since they didn't go too deep into the forest, the operation wasn't as dangerous as this one. But the operation wasn't without losses either. Ross brought 12 men with him and returned with 7. If the safe house they decided to use hadn't caught on fire, the operation would have ended with only 7 casualties. Due to the complications and the Senate's trust in Ross, they put the undead in the cellar below Ross' home. Since it was supposed to be one day, Ross reluctantly agreed to the plan. At that time, he never thought his wife would go to the cellar to pick up a wine bottle for him. To this day, Ross had no idea how the undead managed to break out of its cage. Only Marcel, Maria, and himself knew what really happened to Ross' wife. No matter how hard Ross tried, he couldn't get the blood of his own wife off his hands. Every time he saw Maria, he saw his wife. The guilt ate his soul itself. A while later, he couldn't take it anymore as he sent Maria to a sect far away from Giselle. Yet again, he never thought she would turn into completely a different person. "You're right to blame me, but you're not a murdered, Maria." "You kidding me? I just killed these people." She devilishly chuckled, pointing her finger at the headless bodies in the hall. "And don't act like you know me. You were never there for me and my mother. You failed as a father and a husband. You're an utter failure. Who would bring an undead to their own home? And even when we started this journey, if you were a good father, no matter how stubborn your daughter was, you would have sent her away. Even then, you put your mission to serve Giselle first." Her words were spot on. He was too focused on saving his kingdom rather than his daughter. The scholars and Senate were absolutely sure that they could control the undead army with this artifact. That was why he risked his life to come here. If they could control this undead army, No kingdom would stand on Giselle's path or dare to invade them. The Alphas were an example of the artifact's power to control the undead. Since no man came to save me or my mother, I learned to protect myself and to destroy those who harmed me. I'd bet someone would kill the Senate for me and pay millions of gold for this artifact. Maria, this is not you. Ross' voice broke in overwhelming regret. He tried to knock some sense into Maria. This is the new me. That lovey-dovey stupid girl thing was just an act to fool you. And it seems it can fool anyone. I mean, you have no idea how easily you can manipulate men putting up an act. Plus, you're all fools, so it was much easier to fool you. Seeing the young girl laughing at them made everyone feel embarrassed and mad. Even H, who had decades of dealing with criminals and battle experience, failed to see her true face. But I got to give it to you guys. You've done a great job escorting me here. I never thought getting here would be this easy. I guess those Alphas are just overrated. If this was a better circumstance, they would gladly agree with her because they did see only one Alpha. And you, my slave, are ridiculously underrated. I cannot wait to hear how you managed to throw a boulder that size. Was it you who ordered to kill Rowan's team and destroy the ship? H suddenly asked before Maria could get an answer from Johnny. Why would I do that? I'm not stupid to destroy my safe ride. I don't know who, might be someone else with the grudge against Giselle. Now enough talking, let's get to the fun part. Killing you all. She licked the spear's blade. I didn't, master. Suddenly, her menacing eyes turned at Johnny, who spoke without lifting his head up. What, you didn't? Throwing the boulder, master. It wasn't me. She creased her brows. Destroying the ship was a logical move for anyone with a grudge against Giselle, and there were countless people who fell into that category. However, she couldn't think of a person who would help them get to the artifact. Why don't you ask me? Maria felt a chill running through her spine when she heard an unearthly voice coming from behind. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.